lights on.
Okay.
No. Okay, start with flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Glad to have you here. There's a whole bunch of people here. I think we can take it off, no problem with that.
I'm a little distant, so.
And so we're glad to have you here, and there's a bunch of people that wants to learn something today, including us. I mean, we all can learn. So, my name's Randy Dalpy, chairman this year. I'll let the rest of them.
Ken Becker, Dave Troopman,
Dave Mueller.
And start over there with, this is, give your department heads and who you are over there. Somebody.
We'll start in front, how about that?
Sharon Armstead with Planning and Zoning and Environmental.
Travis Palmer, EMS Director.
Rebecca Wingfield, legislative deeds.
Deidre Serene, Health Department.
Bryce Goebel, Marion County Engineer.
Isaac Head, Marion County Park and Lake.
Gayla Ratzlaff, Marion County Department on Aging.
Susan Bird, Marion County Treasurer-elect, I guess, is the right word.
Very good.
So that's your core group you have here today. So we're available for anything you need us to do. Just tell us to do it.
All right, this is going to be a lot of work, but we're going to move through it pretty well. Thank you for having me. I'm Paula Downs. I'm with Wichita State University. And I've done lots of these, so you're not the only community, and I'm glad that you're looking at ways in which you can think about your future differently and better and receive the input that you need to move forward, okay? So today we're going to do a little bit of different things. So I gave you an agenda, so we're going to try to stick to that as much as we can so that we can definitely get through the things that we need to talk about. So pretty much this morning is going to go in this order, right? So we're going to talk about what you're facing, what are the major challenges, and try to understand that, because part of planning is getting ready for those challenges, and some of your departments might be well aware of things that are going to be happening in their departments or in cities and moving forward in general about what we need to pay attention to. We're gonna talk about the challenges, what you guys do well, what you don't do as well, where the gaps are, and then maybe some things you should not keep doing. Right? There's some things maybe in policies or procedures or tasks that maybe aren't the best use of time and resources. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about where are some new opportunities that Marion County should explore that maybe you haven't to this time frame, and the reasons why you might need to. We're going to narrow those areas of focus. We're all going to talk about a lot of things today. We're going to probably have a lot of stuff on the flowcharts, but we have to narrow that down because you can only do so much in a certain amount of time, right? You have to make sure that you're successful by establishing the plan. And then we'll talk about how we might define some action steps moving forward and then other issues. So, I want to start. The idea is to think about how we are operating and how we are working together and how we move Marion County forward. Welcome. And so the thing I'd love to do first off is allow staff from their respective areas of expertise talk to us a little bit about challenges that you might be facing in your areas, right? And both in the short and long term. So from your perspective, what are some challenges that you're facing or trends that are happening that you might need to get ahead of? And I don't care who wants to start, but somebody has to. And don't talk all at once, because I need to make sure I take notes.
I would say for my department, the biggest thing we're struggling with is just finding volunteers
Sure.
to come help us do things that we used to have before, and it's just harder and harder to find people.
Caveat, no judgment on spelling. Yes, sir.
Obviously, road and bridge, we face a huge issue of the revenues to try to keep up, let alone gain on roads and bridges.
Okay. Bridges, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. What else? What are your challenges? Everybody's perfectly happy, has everything they need, doesn't need anything else ever.
I think our biggest challenge is mental health crisis that we have to deal with. And we're not equipped or designed that way
Okay.
in the law enforcement.
Okay. What else?
Professional training.
Okay.
I think something else that affects all of us, some more, a little more directly versus indirectly, that we are a large county with a smaller population. That affects, you know, the law enforcement, EMS, the roads, but it also comes into play with people in the courthouse to where it makes for a long trip for people to come in and do that. So one of the ways to try to do it is find electronic means of whatever else, but again, when it comes to government, we're a little slow when it comes to that technology, but we're also a fairly aging population, so that those people just by nature don't pick up on the technology maybe readily or fast or whatever the case may be, but so because I know the large county just kills me for the size of stuff that I have to, or for whatever else, so.
I think staff, lack of staff, particularly like nursing, like a pool to draw from.
Are you talking about recruiting?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What else?
I was thinking about that same thing the other day, and really, kind of what I was thinking about was, when I first came to work for the county, you know, and before that, the county was an employee you wanted to work for because they paid decent, you know you were gonna get good benefits, and it was a sought after job to work for the county. And it doesn't feel like that anymore. It's not, you know, we have a lot of trouble trying to hire right now. And so it's been a shift. There's a shift in the employees we can draw from. There's a shift in attitude about the county from what it was, you know, a few years back. So. And there's a anti-government kind of, sorry. There's an anti-government, really, I mean,
Yeah,
it has been a lot
changed.
to deal with, you know, recently with the feeling from the public that the government is bad and out to, you know, at all levels, so that's been hard to deal with.
I've been in public service for 30 years. I should have started with this. I worked for Sedgwick County for 22 years before I came to WSU, and there's an ebb and flow, just like you said.
Yeah.
Over the years, definitely. What else?
I think it's hard to keep up with state, federal laws and keep all of our regulations up to date. Just keeping up with the changes. What else? Welcome.
That's one of our biggest challenges, is providing 911 service and transfer service and that balance of keeping staffing available in the county.
What else? Trends.
I think there might be a lack of understanding in the county about what specific departments do and how they do it.
Okay. from a citizen perspective. Other challenges that you're seeing within your departments, future trends, things that you'll need to think about in order to grow, move forward?
I think the future trend is so many people have access and want to be able to do everything from home. So work from home, vote from home. I mean, they all want to do. I mean, I think we need to be adaptable to give people options of how to do business. And we need more space.
We struggle to keep up with it, and every new program creates its own set of complications, meshing with programs and requirements for reports and stuff to different agencies, KBI, FBI. IT is tough and expensive to keep up with.
What else is the challenge? What are future trends?
Well, I think one of the things that has been brought on the last year is what is the new normal gonna be? You know, with, like we've talked about here, you know, all the agencies that have been shut down or working from home, are they, like talked before, are they gonna continue to work at home? But I can tell you that communication has really hurt in the last year. So, you know, we'll for instance, you know, a lot of places offer curbside delivery. Well, will that continue? You know, like you're talking about some of our services, will we continue them? So.
What else? Oh, had a lot to say in the survey. I'm hearing some things.
Well, I know for us, we had a pretty good immunization program going, and now people aren't calling, they aren't keeping up with, so that's our revenue for that. You know, that was our major revenue source, and of course now we're getting COVID money, but you know, how do we get those clients back in?
Can I say the health department, or do you want me to say just for vaccinations, or?
Well, the health department,
Okay.
yeah.
What else? You came in, but department? Can you tell me who you are?
Appraiser's office.
Appraiser's office and
Treasurer.
treasurer, okay. And, what's that?
The newspaper.
Thank you. Any challenges when it comes to the departments or future trends that you see coming on the horizon? Because that's a consideration, right? What we know is coming that we have to prepare for now, right? What other things? What's changing? Anybody here from the fire department? No? You have a volunteer fire department? Okay. Nothing's changing.
Would just, the way things have changed, everything takes longer to do to help someone because communication isn't face-to-face.
Okay.
So keeping everything sorted together for that individual and getting it done timely.
What else?
I think sometimes we don't know what's gonna be changing or what the new thing is, and a lot of times things are mandated from higher levels, and we just have to adapt to that. Not just trends, but, you know, we're subject to what the legislature does,
Sure.
and, you know, so we have unfunded mandates. I think the trend for what I've seen recently is that we keep being expected to do more and more, but nobody wants to pay more. And, you know, we need to do more with less. And how do we do that?
I think we've all gone through the cycle of do more. We were doing more and more, then we were doing more with less. And now we're at less with less. Yeah.
Well, I think that's one of the challenges that Marion County faces as a whole is population
Okay.
continues to go down, and we still try to provide the same service we were. And I think that kind of sums it all up, that a lot of the things you're writing down have to do with money and staff, and if the population continues to dwindle, you either stop providing as much service, or you start taxing the people that are doing more. And that's what those gentlemen get to decide. But how do you fix that? I mean, that's,
Which then gets counterproductive because.
right, then people don't wanna come here and pay the taxes, and it's a vicious cycle.
And then it kind of keeps going down. Okay.
And I think that's the challenge, is prioritizing what is minimum, what is, not saying that any one department has too much of anything, but where do you start making cuts? How do you start rearranging the county to save the taxpayer dollars?
What's the service priorities that we should be doing and people expect us to do, and we expect to do?
Another thing that really, I guess, is kind of out of our control in a way is, like you're talking about the population basis, but we still have 5 school districts in a county.
What does that mean?
Well, as far as the tax base, you know, what we hear is, well, we pay a lot of taxes. Well, a lot of those taxes go to the schools. 5 school districts. We have 2, you know, fairly remote, small schools. But again, they're the same way. They're providing a service to the local kids. So that if you close down the schools, and you have transportation issues and whatever else. But you know, as the population dwindles, that puts more and more stress on them, and well as everybody else.
Other challenges, other things that need to be considered. I gave you all a summary of the survey, so that you could see what everybody else was saying also. And some of the things have been mentioned today that we've talked about, but is there anything else you want to add right now related to the overview within your areas? Okay. Challenges that you're facing, trends, things that you hope to stay on top of or get ahead of because you know they're coming, whatever that looks like. Okay. Anything specific? And solar, okay. What else? Everything's good,
Well, we had a real challenge with misinformation, you know, during election time especially. A lot of people just rampantly sharing false information on social media platforms and other platforms. And so people believe a lot of things, and how do you fight the misinformation? I mean, you have to find ways to demonstrate what is true or what is the correct information, and getting that out there is sometimes difficult.
We call it the storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Telling our story.
Part of that goes back to, there seems to be a growing mistrust of government areas, even at this level.
I can tell you, I teach a lot, and anything that happens at the federal level trickles down to the state level. Anything that happens at the state level, local government faces, because we're the face, we're the closest person. So anything that's happening outside of our control always paints us all with a broader paintbrush. It always does. It's tough.
And I think infrastructure is important.
Okay.
We don't necessarily have great internet infrastructure throughout our county, so that's a challenge. And especially if we want to try to grow our population or, attract people to come here, I think that, part of what may enable them to do that is if they can work from home and have a good internet to be able to do that, so.
What else? Not that you can't say stuff later, but is there anything else that you are seeing or facing? Creative wallpapering. Okay. Anything else from the departments? Did I hear from every department? Because if I didn't, man, you're lucky. Things are going great. Okay. Next piece involves everybody, including commissioners. What are you doing well? What are those things that you're doing well that you want to make sure we continue to do moving forward?
I think we've adapted well
Okay.
to the changes. We had to make a lot of adjustments and to accommodate our customers and take care of business, and we've been there every day doing it.
Yeah.
Not one day have we not done it.
Sure.
I think for us, the different departments all coming together and helping us out has been really a good thing, from the commissioners to the clerks to all the offices, basically, have lent a hand.
What else do you do well? Y'all, I'm worried about Marion County. We have two things. I'm worried. What else?
We've adapted to the modern age, but we still prioritize on the person,
Okay.
which is why people live in small counties.
What's going well? Why Marion County?
I think providing professional services is a key for all of us. And I think we all do a good job of that.
Okay.
With the true best interest of those served in mind, but we also have to balance what we legally and lawfully are required to do or not do. And I think we balance those.
Balance requirements versus not. So you've got a little bit of balance, right?
We do, we try to balance the services with what we legally
Yeah.
and what we should be doing. But it's not always the expectation of what somebody wants us to do. In all departments.
Okay. What are you doing well? Why Marion County?
I think especially in road and bridge, I think we do a very good job of providing services, even though it may not be enough or whatever else for what the constituents want or think. You know, we have the adage, or a lot of the constituents think that we don't do anything, we're lazy, we're just sitting around, so when they call up, we should be out there immediately to do stuff. And that's not the case, because again, being such a large county, we're always out somewhere, but if it's not in front of their place, then, so I think we provide a very good service for that. It's just, it's never enough for everybody.
Sure.
I think we do have 5 excellent school districts. I mean, we have 5 districts.
Yep.
But I think they're all quality, and I think that's a big attraction for a lot of families, are the school districts.
What else do you do well? Yes, sir.
I think we provide a good quality of life
Okay.
with the assets that we have available in the county.
Because you have some assets, some stuff's going good today, you know? Some stuff is going well. What else? What do you do well, deliver well, specifically?
I think I would just add to some of those points that I feel like our departments go above and beyond and just add a little bit of a personal touch to the services that we provide.
And we work together.
Because it's a small community.
Yep. What else? Usually this is the one I get the most conversation. I don't know.
We're in a rut.
Let's dig it out, let's dig it out. Let's dig it out. Maybe it is helpful to think about, you know, individually. I mean, there's a department sitting here, right? You're here for a purpose. What are you doing? What are you doing? What's going well? I've got all kinds of departments in here. Department on Aging, I've got appraisers, I've got Health Department, I've got Parks and Rec, I've got a sheriff. What's going well? What do you do well?
Well, for us, volunteers have gone well.
Okay?
I think priorities have gone well in our department. Some people might not believe that, but we're trying, and I think so far.
So there's been a lot with the health department, as you know, but you know, right now that they're with other departments, but primarily the health department, emergency management, and they're doing vaccine pods, basically points of distribution, and so different departments have been helping with that, but that's been going really well. They've been getting a lot of really good feedback from the public, from those who have actually gone through those, and you know, so I think that's going well, and I think that needs to be, you know, mentioned.
Yep.
I think something going well for EMS is we have a more professional presence in the county, you know. It's become a highly respected service. We have paramedics and, you know, fully staffed ambulances, and so those are positive things. and they look professional. Sometimes they act professional.
All of my employees act professional.
They do, they really do.
No, the employees are great, the department head.
No, but there's good leadership, and they have a good reputation, and people are really proud of them.
In my department, we're working well with the local hospitals to try and overcome some challenges, but the willingness to work together is wonderful. I mean, we're all on the same team trying to provide for a common goal. So that's going very well.
Good. See, I knew there was some stuff.
Tina's
Keep
just
prompting
got
them, Tina.
Yes.
They're modest, right?
Register of Deeds, so they completed a project to get a lot more of their records on digitally available, and that was kind of a big undertaking, and that has been a great success for their office to try to make those things more accessible to the public.
I'll help you, Isaac. We have a wonderful county lake.
Yes.
I have not heard anything about parks. That's usually the first thing I hear about.
It's wonderful.
I will say that, like, especially being out at the lake, we have a lot of people out there that have certain things that, you know, they want to see or they don't want to see, but you also have a lot of conflicting opinions on what they want to see. But I feel like out there, and like Road and Bridge probably has a lot of the same thing. I think a lot of the people just want to be heard. And so if you can just listen to them and take whatever they're saying into consideration, and I feel like with a lot of the departments, just talking to people, you know, they say they go in and they met so-and-so and they had a really good conversation. And, you know, I feel like as far as our, I'm trying to think, relationship with the citizens as department heads has been really good. I've heard a lot of positive things about dealing with certain departments within the county.
Good. Anything else going well?
I think that one of the things that I think is we work well inter-departments, and the fact is that we help each other out. You know, we all have our niches and expertise and stuff like that, and we call on other people to help out. You know, I know with Road and Bridge, we're constantly working with all of them on what we can do. And
You clean my driveway when it snows. And if one of those guys falls off a ladder, we pick them up.
Yeah,
So, I mean, we work together.
There you go.
I was thinking a little bit different stuff.
Oh.
But,
You clean their driveways?
oh yeah.
We mow their grass.
Yeah.
So, we talked a little bit about individual, anything else on what's going well? Do you think of anything we want to make sure we capture?
I think a trend that we've started to see on a small scale is attracting some of the kids that were raised in this county back. It used to be that most of the kids couldn't wait to get out of the county. But I think we're starting to see some, especially those with families now, see the benefit of raising their children rurally. And with technology the way it is and people being able to work out of their house or, you know, go to the office once or twice a week, I think that's something that we can really draw on in the future.
Sure. Anything else?
That's sort of something that is on that line, what Kent just said is, I think a lot of us have been around this county most of our life. It used to be an older county, one person household and making the money, mom staying home raising kids. This county has grown to be a two-person income county. And whether they stay in the county and work or whether they don't. And so that's something that we've got to adapt to, is to try to make jobs and things for everybody to have, and yet what they was talking about, be a decent paying job so they could stay in our county. So, and I've seen all over that, you know, there's not the age group, or we used to be one of the oldest counties. We was ranked clear up almost the top of the oldest county in population, percentage-wise. And now it's dropping back down to, we're getting out of that age group now, so we've got to change to adapt.
Anything else? So what are some of the things that Marion County is doing now that maybe they ought not be doing moving forward? What are some things that might need to not happen, or should no longer do?
I think we've got to adjust our services, what I've heard the department head say, adjust our services for what we can provide. And that might be some changes that people don't want to hear. Starting from the top, I mean, you always hear, well, we used to do it, well, it may not be available someday.
Yeah. What are some other things that might not be as critical anymore? You shouldn't be doing.
Well, I think sometimes as other places develop or other facilities, there's duplication of services. So I think there needs to look around and see what is duplicated, and maybe we should quit doing, you know, like you said, quit doing those things, because there's other groups that have kind of taken over those duties or concerns.
Okay. Organizational assessment, that's what we call that.
I know we read in some of the publications that we get, government publications, about counties that have privatized some of their departments. I haven't seen the cost savings in that yet, but it is happening.
Yep. Consolidations and what bunch of stuff coming through the magazines. What else? Is there anything specific that might be duplicated, or might need to be adjusted, or might need to be prioritized? Or privatized, I guess I should say too. What else? Anything that can be done if you had something, a piece of equipment, technology, software, anything like that.
I think the world as a whole has to move in that direction. The labor force that we have isn't the labor force of the past. Anything we can do to move towards the technological advantages we can find to get by with less. It used to be that you loaded up with people and there was plenty of people willing to work. It doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
So technology was a key. What else?
And with that, maybe allowing people, and Tina brought that up, to work remote.
And that comes with the infrastructure. So, and right now you've got an outcropping of the whole U.S. Looking for that urban sprawl. If they have the jobs, they can have it. If you've got the high speed provided, they will come here because of schools, and that creates a cycle that creates growth, which creates tax dollars, which creates more
services.
Yeah, it's just it's a circle.
Hamster wheel, right? It's a hamster wheel, absolutely.
I think maybe one thing is prioritizing, you know, the roads, you know, the infrastructure of the roads, figuring out, does it make sense to keep maintaining all these roads, or does it make sense to look at a few of them that maybe could be, you know, closed, or you know, you have to kind of evaluate that, or do we need them all to be asphalt, the ones that are, or could some of them be, you know, those kind of things. Does that make sense to keep doing it just because we always have done it that way?
Just compare materials and miles. My husband's a public works director, and I hear it all the time, right? Infrastructure's huge, and we have a 1 mile grid in Kansas, as you well know. I was in a county that had 645 bridges, right? It's a lot to maintain, so that's a lot of work, absolutely. So prioritizing. Do you have a CIP?
Not
plan?
really. I mean,
that's what what you're saying, really. Is a
yeah,
CIP plan.
right. I mean, we have a real bottom line one that I think we probably need a better one, don't you, Brent?
Yeah. Well, the other thing looking at is dealing with our roads is I've actually started looking into basically a pavement management system, you know, to document what's there, but where we are now, where we're going, things like that, so.
What about, you know, right now we have full-time employees and part-time employees. Maybe get some permanent part-time that get benefits. I mean, so let's stop just classifying two. I don't know how to really explain it, but it would be nice to have like someone that maybe works 30 hours a week could get some benefits.
Well, we're already doing that.
Well,
If they work 30 hours a week or more, they're subject to capers and we have to offer insurance.
right.
I mean,
but
you're
it's
talking about paid leave.
It's
That's what you're
kind of,
talking about.
yeah, paid leave,
Okay.
and it's kind of discouraged now. I mean, well, I don't know, not so much anymore, but it used to be, okay, you either hire someone this, or you hire someone for 999.75 hours, and just change that.
So that's a staffing plan, staffing analysis about who works, how often they work, and what they do.
One thing we're doing in Marion County now, along with a lot of rural counties in Kansas, is department sharing. One department head takes care of 2-3 counties.
I'm sorry, say that again. A department head in Marion County is overseeing several departments
No,
or helping?
one department head is in charge of 2-3 counties.
Oh,
Good
okay.
example of that is our
Yeah.
appraiser department right now.
Okay,
Our county appraiser also has 2 other counties he takes care of.
so you have some sort of MOU or something in place for that? I don't know how that
We
works.
didn't, but it's just,
You just help across county lines, okay.
and they're actually, they don't live in our county. They live, you know,
Got it.
but we don't have an MOU with the other counties for that. We do have, though, have department heads that take care of multiple departments
Yeah.
as well.
Okay.
And then, you know, one thing to think about is if we had a more efficient way to use space, could we utilize shared staff members across different departments at times?
Well, that's a big one. We've tried that before and got it thrown back in our face.
Well, sometimes it works.
I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, it is, it can be difficult
It's
because of
difficult,
different
but it's-
department heads.
What's the current population of the county now?
Under 12, probably.
11, 8, somewhere.
For the whole county?
Mhm.
Okay. Other things that maybe we need to look at that may, that could lead to maybe doing something, not doing something in the future, right? These are all sort of evaluations that could lend itself to that area. But are there things that, I was in a city one time and they said, you know, our public works department doesn't have time to put banners up on Main Street. I just thought, wow, of all the things, right? Banners on Main Street.
That's important.
That's, it's quality of life, let me tell you, when they're gone, people know.
Somebody.
Mhm. Any other things that we know of that could be looked at or evaluated and or should not do any longer?
I think we try to look, I know I do, try to look at that within my department all the time, you know. And we've tried to like progress with how we do things I really can't think of too much that we could not be doing, that we're doing. You know, I really have a hard time with it, trying to figure what that might be.
We have a lot of paperwork, it would be nice to be
More computerized than paper documentation.
yeah, yes.
But technology usually creates another job. You can, a lot of times.
Yeah, at first.
Well, and then you always have to have a backup, because what if your technology doesn't work? I mean, just like with elections, I have to have a backup for everything we do electronically. We have to be able to do it all on paper, so, you know, you just can't forget the ways.
Yeah, well, some things, like I'm thinking spreadsheet and, you know, making appointments. I think it needs to be done directly on the computer rather than writing it down and then putting it on the computer. But that's just.
I'm gonna put on here an efficiency study, because that's what Tina's talking about, is how you evaluate your own department. And it's like a time tracking where you say, you know, this is what we're doing. Somebody calls, we take the appointment down, then somebody has to enter it in the computer, and then we have, right, so how you look at your steps, right? And then that's what you said you do, but maybe just on a broader perspective. What else? I think you all said it earlier, right? There might be some prioritization that has to occur around services and what you deliver as a whole. So, anything else? Any other things that you can evaluate or no longer do?
I would say try to minimize the arguing we do amongst ourselves.
We have passionate people in this room? Surely not.
We do, but I think it doesn't portray a really good image for Marion County.
Okay.
And I think if we can try to limit, you know, the negativity, focus on what's positive. Focus on the good things that we do. And acknowledge that, yeah, there's some room for improvement in every area.
Sure.
But focus on that in a good way versus a negative, you know, unconstructive.
Yeah. Anything else you shouldn't be doing? Okay. What are some opportunities for Marion County that you want to explore or could explore to make things better? What are some opportunities to explore?
Is there opportunity for business?
Okay.
There's room, you know, most of the cities in the county have a business model district.
Economic development.
Economic development, you know, like out here on the highway or.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
different.
You have an economic development, okay, sorry. Somebody said EcoDevo, and I thought, oh, okay.
He was referring to cities.
Oh,
Cities
okay.
have-
Yeah, so EcoDevo activities, right?
And with that, we need to recruit jobs. We need the higher paying jobs, the opportunities for people to want to come here.
Which comes from the business. Yeah. Okay, what else? What are some opportunities to explore? Yes, sir. Nobody raises their hand. Gosh, good job. Wow, I
Sorry.
love that.
Sorry.
We're not used to that treatment either.
Yeah, oh, okay.
I don't know why.
I'm gonna leave. I just
Why he's
really,
being nice to you.
wow.
Positivity.
Anyway, one of the things that will be, it's an unfortunate situation, I guess you say, but the situation with Father Capon, with the Catholic Church, they're looking to canonize him. Well, we've actually already started a group to look into that, but the economic boon for Marion County and surrounding counties could be huge, but it also creates a more immediate need for lots of things. Basically anything and everything that you can think of with the county will be involved, from roads to economic to housing to restaurants to whatever else. But if we do plan well, we can hopefully be ready for most of that. And I think with people coming into the county as well as surrounding counties, there would be a tremendous tax revenue that could come out of that. But we have to get to that point to be able to provide those services, because we were just talking this morning that they're talking about there's talk about having his basically his funeral at the church, and that could bring in tens or hundreds of thousands of people, and we were like, oh no. So, but anyway, with the proper planning, that the sad part about it is we don't know if and or when that would be, but like I said, there could be a tremendous opportunity there. But
It's an asset, brings people in.
and I think that could go all the way around, and even with the county lake, the reservoir. The other thing that we kind of, I wouldn't say struggle with, but we face with different modes of government is that, we've got a reservoir out here that has a tremendous camping base. Of course, they were hit a lot, it closed down this last year, but, we try to work with them too on things, not only with road and bridge, but economically. So, encourage those or promote those county resources.
I'm sure there's activities and events and stuff at the lake.
Well, they're kind of the same way. It's like, they don't actively go out and push this stuff simply because they have their work and criteria too. But, that's definitely a boon for the county when we have people coming in for the weekends and stuff.
I'm gonna put marketing.
Yes.
Because, that's at the crux of all this. You have to tell your story. What else is an opportunity?
Well, if you drive around the county right now, you see a lot of high-speed internet cable being laid. Not just Hillsborough, but now up in the rural areas. I just saw them landline in Durham this morning. I mean, when you're talking about attracting people to the county, that's almost number one anymore. For the young folks, they're still working.
For entertainment too. At home.
Yeah, you haven't provided any real specifics, but what are some specific, you talked about entertainment, but what does that look like? You talked about restaurants, what does that look like? What are those things that, if you're gonna recruit businesses, what does that look like?
Very sad.
I know, what do you hope it looks like? What is it that you want to explore or attract or that kind of thing?
The lake has been having some events. Isaac, you had 3 or 4 events a year now.
Yep.
That attracts people from the outside.
We need to go after another marshmallow.
I guess my question is, as a whole, do we have a vision for the county? Where do we want to be? I mean, we don't want to be, how big a cities do you want in the county? Do you want to lose that small town feel, but you don't want to die? If we're not looking to change, then we're in trouble. I mean, we have to adapt all the time. But if we wanted Marion, Hillsborough, and Peabody to become 10,000 population each, that changes. I mean, you've got to have your goals to get that.
Sure, because that'll
Is-
shift
is-
your focus.
Right, is our goal to, what is our goal? I mean, and that's, I don't know that anybody in this room has that one single correct opinion, but I think we have to work towards a common goal. And if that goal is to not lose any more population, or if it's to increase population, if it's increase jobs. I think the shift, we've talked about workforce, the shift to send everybody to college and go send your child off to live a better life than you in Wichita because you can make more money. Maybe we shouldn't be pushing young people to do that. We should tell them they can have a good life here. And our schools are great, but the shift that working for the county is not a good job anymore because you're, I don't mean that, I'm saying what Tina said, sorry. But it's because it's a menial job. It's not a career that's looked highly upon. And that's yeah, and that's nationwide. I mean, so, I mean, this is very difficult for me to say, I want this to be a town of 15,000 people and a county of 50,000. If I wanted that, I would go there. But I also want to be able to provide a service and not be taxed so much that it's a detriment. So I think goal setting is what we have to shoot for.
Well, and I really like the idea of instilling in our young people too, that
Right.
the quality of life that we have here and the ability to have a career, you know.
I guess the key is we have to find some way to employ young people to keep them here in meaningful job, in a career.
Well, and that's where you get back to the wages, you know, it's when you can, because.
Those jobs can't all be government jobs, they have to be
Right.
private jobs
Yeah,
included.
absolutely.
Industries and, you know, there goes, you know, back to Travis, there goes, okay, how big of industries can we support, you know, and we have to.
Have more housing.
Realistically, what kind of a job force do we have? And
I don't think that the commissioners necessarily, or anybody in this room controls that.
No.
But if we can foster
we have
a
to
small
consider
part
that
of it,
when we're pushing for things, you know.
I'd like to see our high schools offer more technical training. They are offering some, you know, we got the welding thing and a few things like that.
Right.
But I know of one county in western Kansas that back when oil was really high, their road and bridge department was decimated by the oil companies. They had no road maintainers.
They all went to work for the.
And so the 2 or 3 high schools that were in that county went together and started started a equipment program for seniors. And basically for several years, they had 18, 19, 20-year-olds doing road maintenance. And, you know, of course they knew they wanted to keep them all, but, you know, to cultivate some of that. And then another thing is, and I don't know if Hillsborough still has do they still have a business incubator? I'd have to talk to, you know, they started one at one time.
The building still exists. I don't know if anybody's in there currently right now.
I was reading an article last week about Norton County, about northwest Kansas. I don't know how much the county's involved, other than they had an empty building and they allowed a group to start a business incubator in Norton, which is, well, it might be a little bit bigger than Marion. But right now, they've got 5 or 6 businesses operating out of that building, you know, until they can get their feet on the ground and get their own location. I mean, it was anything from a florist to a insurance agent. And so I thought that was pretty innovative, and the county wasn't charging them any rent.
I would like to see something like you touched on. If we could start something in our schools, since we do have 5 districts, could we start something that brings them out high school ready to work for Road and Bridge or whatever. I mean, or you know, head down the path of becoming an EMT. I mean, just that's how you retain them.
I mean, and Bryce can attest to this. I mean, he's always got his name on the list at Beloit, and we never get an operator out of that. They all go to private business.
Yeah. One of the things we face is we get a lot of, we have a lot of public experts when it tells us how to do our road and bridge stuff. And what's funny is we will go out and talk to them, and they say, well, all you gotta do is this and this and this, and we say, great, how'd you like to come to work for us? Well, I ain't gonna come to work for you for make that kind of money. Well, that in turn corresponds with most people, especially younger kids, that's all they're looking at is the dollars per hour. Now, we actually have a very, very good benefits program because I tell my people, don't bitch about what this is costing. Go find your own. In the private industry, same plans we're looking at are several $1,000s a month and don't cover as much. They don't look at that, you know, so I mean, but the other thing is, you know, when I first took over a year and a half ago, I told the people, I said, I know you don't work here for the money. You work here for a 40-hour week job that you can go do another part-time job, a lot of farming, stuff like that. But you also work, we're basically a big family. You know, we care about each other, and if you need to have time off or you need something, we can make that work. But they don't see that. All they see is that original dollar sign. And like I said, it's funny that people can tell you how to do your job, but then if you ask them to come show you, they won't do it. You know, so I face that all the time. And so it still doesn't stop them from giving us their input, to be polite. But but you know that comes down to the fact is, you know, the commission knows this too when you're dealing with primarily taxes of some sort. So I had a guy talk to me too that you know, we get a lot of money in the state from gas taxes. Well, gas taxes are going down basically every year because I think people are driving less or doing more remote stuff. The fuel efficiency is getting better. We're getting more and more electric cars, so that's going to go down. So especially in a rural economy, that's really, really tough to promote the electric cars because I think we have Hillsboro's looking to make one charging spot for cars, otherwise it's going to be at your house. So it's very, very tough to push that. But in the city, it's not a problem. But it's still going to affect us when it comes to taxes for fuels. So we're going to be losing more and more money, but we're still going to have to provide those services.
Yeah, primarily property tax, a little bit of sales tax, gas tax. So that diversity of funding is going to look a little different for departments and services in general. Yeah. What else should be explored? And I think you're right. I think part of the stepping stone today is understanding who people are and understanding where you might want to go, right? So I put in there, you guys mentioned businesses and jobs and houses and infrastructure and on and on and on, but how much of each and the dollars to do that, right? You have a finite resources, right? And it's about choices. And what choices are you going to make within these areas? Because, as we've said, it goes around and around. You can't do one without the other. Any other opportunities that you want to explore that could enhance Marion County? It's not being done now.
I'll throw that one out there. Just echo what everybody said in here. We've got a bunch of departments that do a lot of things very well, but that pushes them right to the max. And they struggle to get anything outside of that box because they're being so professional in what they're doing. So somebody that was allowed to come in that could bring cohesiveness, like an administrator or something like that. That could allow them to keep doing the high level of professionalism that and bridge those other little gaps.
You'll notice on the summary of the survey, having county administrator was mentioned. numerous times, right? But you're wanting to do, there's a lot of heavy lifting to do, right? You need there was a feeling that maybe a professional staff in that manner would help do that heavy lifting.
I think that would help define the goals that are expected of all of us in a long-term situation, so they don't change from week to week, and allow people, departments to, work toward the long-term goal as set by the county, where they want to go and what they want to see.
I mean, elected bodies are visionaries and
develop plans to
professional
get
staff.
there.
Yeah, delivering. Okay.
And I think that really plays on the communication with an administrator, somebody that's there every day. I know I spoke to a couple of the commissioners about a department head meeting where two commissioners were there 1 month, the next month, 2 different ones. So we could sit down and have a conversation amongst the department head. What's going on in your department? What are the challenges? Basically, this meeting on a scaled down version, and we would do that monthly with commission there. Then over the course of a couple months, when we go to a commission meeting, we don't have to lay out the entire plan. We can do that in an informal setting and bounce ideas off each other. I know we had department head meetings where I worked before, and that's where a lot of your business was taken care of. Here, we're trying to do that in a commission meeting, and it's not real conducive to, the meeting draws out quite a bit when, sorry, Bryce, but Bryce is talking about the difference between a flail mower versus this. And it can drag out. What could really be discussed in a department head meeting or an individual meeting? I think that communication could happen tomorrow. The administrator side, if I come up with a 3-year plan, instead of selling it to each commissioner individually, I sell it to an administrator who then tells me either I'm crazy or this could work.
Yeah, you're crazy, right?
And let's see how to implement it. And not
It's a different
taking a
structure.
job away from the commission, but
Yeah, it's a different structure.
informing them differently, maybe.
I think in a county role, an administrator is sometimes people look at it as like city administrator, which is not. It's more of an executive secretary. But it also, a lot of hesitation gets put up with the elected officials.
Right.
And thinking that that's a problem, but really they kind of fit into their executive secretary too. They don't, because the elected officials are all on the level. The administrator is down here.
Right.
And that's what
The administrator still works for you.
seems to make some people.
What we're doing or wanting to do through them, through you, so that everybody's on the same page and the same, agreement that this is where we need to go. And we could explain to the administrator, this is how we expect to get there. And then that in turn can be discussed, whether that's a feasible option.
And Tina, you do a good job, but it would lighten the load for Tina. I mean, Tina gets hit with a lot of my stuff that isn't really her job, but.
You might need you might need a little bit more, information on the county manager form of government, because it is different. It's very different. And so having that information to understand that all of a sudden the roles and responsibilities shift, right? So, at the top of that pyramid are the elected body, who are really the visionaries, right? They set the tone, they set the vision, and then underneath that staff, that administrator, is the implementation of that value system in ways that meet the needs of their departments and with the department course. So maybe you just need some information about that structure and what it looks like and what that plan would do as it trickles down. So that might be one way to address the administrator position. Yes?
You gotta remember, county is not like city.
Oh, I came from county, 22 years.
But
I worked for a manager all my career,
We
yeah.
all need to keep in mind that the city's government is a like-minded group that got together and formed a government. County, we're an arm of the state, so it's a total different dialogue.
Absolutely.
Well, I think, McPherson County, now this has been years ago, what they did was they had, their commissioners were assigned to departments. If you don't have an administrator, they were assigned to departments, and then throughout that year, that commissioner, it was their job to see what they do, get acquainted to that department. And so then all that communication went to that one commissioner, and they really got an idea. And that worked well.
Wasn't
For
it
them.
that way here at one time, Randy, you would have?
Sort of,
Okay.
but it's never been to where we just directly did that, because
Okay.
we're only good as when we're in the meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I think the rules need to change, just what Janine said a while ago. It's brought up 100 years ago. Does it need to change for today? It does. And things need to change, but as long as you got governing rules back to 100 years ago, why, through government, state and county government, it's just, you gotta follow the rules, and so,
And nobody likes change.
nobody likes change.
I mean,
And we're taking it from the state, I mean,
Right.
they've gotta be the ones to change it, it's not, we can ask for it,
Right.
but.
What changes? I'm sorry, I'm not following what you're saying about the state changing rules for
The
what?
rules that we have today, you have 5 elected officials, and they've been set 100 years ago.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Does that need to change? I don't know. I think so. But, it's gotta come from somebody else other than just county commissioners. I mean, we can ask for it at our county commission general meeting, but,
You're talking about the ability to have an, I'm sorry, I'm a little
Yeah.
lost. The ability to have an administrator? Versus,
No.
No, okay.
no, just your basic outline of county government is still
Oh,
the same.
Regulations.
Your
Got
outline, just, you got a sheriff, you got a treasurer, you got this, you got county commissioners, and it's set a long time ago.
Sure.
What has our world done in 100 years? It's changed a whole heck of a lot from what it was.
Absolutely.
And there's and if you don't like that, listen to the lawyers that get a new case and you'll get a new law from them. And that's one party we don't have here today, is the lawyers department.
Yeah.
And that's who we all live by, the lawyers. They set the rules. And so,
Okay. Anything else that needs to be explored that could provide opportunities for the county? Yes, sir.
One of the things that I've really been trying to do is, and we've talked about changing government, especially in the state, and all the regulations, everything else is, but I think we do a good job of trying to find those resources that are available to us with grants, cost shares, things like that. Anytime that we can get state and or federal money at some sort of a, whatever you say, not really a premium, but loans or grants or whatever else, and I currently have 5 projects going on that involve state and or federal money. And I know that, Sharon deals with a lot of the permits and stuff that she deals with, but I know Randy Frank has really pushed for a lot of those things that, maybe that's, if we could have one person that was really pushing in or looking for those, because, Rob got a UTV a couple years ago based on a grant. Was that from the railroad? Yeah, so I mean, there's stuff out there. It may not be a lot of stuff, but just in my projects alone, we're probably getting, I don't know, $1.5 million or so. That's not going to cost us anything. Well, excuse me, not costing the county directly. It's not free money. It's but I mean those projects are out there, and it just takes so much time to go through all that process. And I guess that's something else too. I don't know how Randy does it, but have somebody that is more delegated, again, that kind of has fallen on Tina, is looking for grants, but also writing grant apps.
It's an art.
And that's the more you put through there. For instance, one of our projects that we got over $2 million from the state on, well, not quite $2 million, but the first time we applied, we didn't get it. The second time we did, because we had 17 letters of support. So that community support makes a world of difference too.
Yeah, grants are an art. And you have to, it's almost a full-time job if you're looking across all of the departments, right? I write a lot of grants, but It is hard.
You want a
It's
job?
time consuming. I'm for sale.
You're
yeah.
for sale.
What can I say? I'm for sale. But yeah, it
Cheap?
takes time.
Cheap?
Of course, I'm
Okay,
cheap.
okay.
But it does take time, you're right. It takes somebody's effort, not only to watch all of the boards, what I call the boards that we watch, but then to write them. And then I tell people, because I teach grant writing, is like, not only, then be afraid if you get it, right? On top of that, right? Because then you've got to manage it and execute it, and still it's this cycle too. So but it's a great opportunity when you do find them.
When you get some, but you not only have to administer that, but you still have to go after more too, so.
Correct,
Yeah.
and still do your regular job, right?
Yep.
Because a lot of times grants don't support existing, it supports or engages new.
Yep.
Right? So, yeah, it's tough.
Maybe that would be a position worth adding.
Yeah, or at least, on some sort of contractual basis if you can't hire somebody full-time or, I grew up at university, so I have a lot of graduate assistants, right? And there's a lot of talent that lies within community colleges and state universities and students needing to work and help and, so it could be staff, it could be just a person who sort of drops in and helps, yeah.
Well, that would be an opportunity for maybe someone at Tabor, like Tabor College to, that's another opportunity to explore, because I know they've helped us a lot, and they're usually pretty willing to do community service.
We advocate for some cost share funds to rural water installation. We have a lot of areas in the northeast corner of the county that don't have good water, or we've had a lot of people that wanted to build new homes but couldn't because they couldn't get water there.
Okay.
Rural water is super expensive.
Once you have it, it's pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's
Once you
nice.
get it,
Yeah, just getting there.
Getting it to your property is super expensive.
Getting it to your house.
Yeah.
I think another opportunity that we have, is our county lake. I think that we could really do some improvements out there and make it more desirable, more able to draw people, more able to add to the income. One particular, the Lake Hall, as a meeting space, if we could upgrade that and make it something like what we see in this room, it would be really nice for people wanting to have meetings. It would be really nice for us to have meetings. And it would just make it a little bit more marketable, I think, and it wouldn't necessarily take that much to do an upgrade of that kind, or to upgrade our camping spaces to where they all have the appropriate electric, or, what they need. I don't think that's a huge, it's an investment you could do over several years and just make it a more marketable space.
And there are probably grants for that.
Right.
Yeah.
There would be some,
Because
yeah.
recreation used to be a huge
Yep.
field for grants when I was in that business.
As an avid camper, this is an
Yes.
one, but
Do you have internet
Yes.
in the lake hall?
this year,
I got it about a
like
week.
camping at Wilson,
Just got
it
updated.
sold out.
Do you need
It sold
to
out
get
quick.
it updated?
People are looking for places to
Oh,
go.
We just got it.
That is something we can capitalize on,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
challenge with that, as all the commissioners are aware, that there's houses around a lot of that lake
Some
that
money in
maybe don't want a camper across from there, blocking their view. And that's something that you guys would have to deal with, but as far as an asset, it's a gem. It's a great thing. There's the revenue that comes in, those people go to Carlson's, they buy their fuel locally. There's a lot comes from that lake. And I know, kind of sidebar, I guess, but there was discussion about rates out there. It's hard to raise rates without increasing what you have, and making improvement. You make an improvement, rates can go up, and campers accept that. I don't look at what it costs per night to go camping. I'm gonna go camping, and I'm gonna go somewhere I enjoy. So if the rates go up because you made improvements, I think there's value in that. And we have something out there that hasn't been developed for a lot of years, but can make some great improvements with water and electricity. and you'll fill them up. You build it, they will come.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't wanna disagree at all on that, but I think if you proved, what you have out there and managed to not keep or raise your rates,
Right.
you would be doing something, because we all know that the recreation spur,
Yeah.
a lot of it's due to COVID.
Sure.
Once COVID's done, how do we keep that? How do we, and part of that is making those improvements without raising those rates.
Sure.
And then we sell out on volume and make up for it that way. I don't,
Well,
that's my
I know
opinion.
this is probably not a good subject, but when I go camping with my family, a lot of times we do wanna go somewhere that has a little cabin. If we had one or two
Yes.
tiny little cabins,
That's a big drop.
okay? Just saying,
Enough said.
that's what
Now-
our
now-
family looks
I
for.
think I've heard about that in the past.
I wanna go, yeah.
Well, and like Wilson, I mean, they have them on the state side, they have 6 cabins set out there, and they're full every weekend.
Yeah, they're always full.
I mean,
So we have solved the lakes problem. I just want you to know. Now, it's up to you to write the grants, right, to build the cabins, get the water. Anything else, and I put on there, I forgot one of the points when you said something about high school, offering sort of that technical training and training to come in government jobs. That is along the same lines as how do you succession plan, right? What's your succession plan, and where are you going to recruit, and where are you going to market? So I put that up there.
And I know that you said, you know, it's based on salaries and stuff, but I know coming out of high school, if you can make $12 an hour right off the gate, I mean, they'd be more apt to come work for you and at least fill some holes.
As long as they haven't been given the dream that you can graduate from high school and go get $25 an hour somewhere.
Right.
That's I think the kids today, and again, it's one of the things where once your kids get 10, 12 years of age, you're basically done, you know, raising them, but, they get these preconceived notions that it's better outside in the world and everything else. But, you know, again, there's other people that like those jobs, but,
You say that, there's a community college that teaches a fire science west of here, and the people that teach that are out of Hutch, Wichita Fire, Cedric County Fire. When those kids graduate, where do they wanna go?
Right.
They wanna go where the teacher has recruited them.
Yeah.
If there was county involvement at the school that's teaching more of the trade, if there was some involvement, you're picking them off.
Do you do recruiting? Do you do recruiting trips?
No, I'm sorry, no.
But you know, there's a
We
huge,
haven't.
I mean,
Right.
there's a huge, we all move in these directions, right? Universities and that kind of stuff with kids or people in high schools. So you're talking about, you know, how do you market to kids? And it's the old-fashioned career day, right? It's
Right.
the old-fashioned recruiting kids at the high school level, inviting them here. You know, and I know this is just a sidebar, but you know, when you think about the simplicity of marketing, I think it's Lawrence, maybe? No, Lawrence, yes, maybe Lawrence or Topeka, but their emergency management system, law enforcement, fire, and EMS, they do tweet-alongs. Have you seen those? They're hilarious. Like they'll show people and bring people out to get on the equipment, Public Works, right, just to look at it and see what it looks like, shadow for the day, those kinds of programs. That's the whole succession planning, recruiting, high school kind of thing that doesn't cost you a dime, right? That they can come, you can talk to them, you can go to the high schools, you can do those kinds of things, and even colleges, right? Because I can tell you, I teach a generations class, and just a side note, the youngest generation coming out of high school fears higher education because they don't want the debt that goes with it. And they're the YouTube, I call it the YouTube generation, where they can learn everything they need to ever learn on YouTube, right? And that's the truth. They're afraid of higher debt. They like tiny living. They do not, you know, their success isn't buying a $400,000 home like it was in my generation or older. So you have some opportunity in the rural areas, and just doing the exact things that you're talking about and recruiting the younger people. It's how you do it, right? How you reach them. It's
My
tough.
former employer, we did the youth academy, we would take, I think it was 6th graders, and they would tour, it was an all-day thing, but they would tour each facility within the city. They would, from the sewer pond to the fire station to wherever, and they would spend 30, 45 minutes at that, run a high loader, little things like that. And then they would meet with the commission and the administrator and learn a lot about their city they were living in. And, you know, if you pulled those in at a high school age to come back to work for you. Another thing, when we're talking wages and people not wanting to come to work, that's a real thing. And it was asked of me, you know, why wouldn't people want to work for a department within the county? And is it pay? If you take an equipment operator, and I certainly don't try and know Bryce's business, but I do understand a little bit of construction side, and if you wanna make money, you go chase the oil field. You go run that blade for a construction company, run an excavator for them, you're gonna make more money. Is it better to have 4 people running 4 blades, or is it better to have 2 really good people making more money, bringing those people out, and 2 people making more money, doing more work? I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying you need less, but if you pay, you know,
I know what you're saying.
quality, and I'm not saying you have bad blade operators, I'm not saying that at all, but is there a trade-off there as to recruitment, retention?
I have to say that if we make it all about pay, that it gets to be a problem, because then you get people that just go for the highest dollar.
Sure.
And it's hard to get them to stay, because sooner or later, somebody over here is gonna offer a little more and they're gone.
Yeah.
So we have to provide other incentives as well. I mean, good, you know, quality pay, but other perks, incentives, whatever you wanna say,
Other benefits.
that make them want to stay.
And I don't disagree with that at all, Rob. As far as recruitment, that dollar sign is there. As far as keeping them, you have to give them a benefit.
They have to enjoy what they're doing and want
I
to be
think it's
here.
a generational thing.
Sure.
I mean, some people, well, and more, like Brandy said earlier, the households, both people work because they have to. But the generations, they do want to work less and make more,
And
or
have
they
time.
have to, and
And
have
flexibility.
time. Because I know in nursing, shoot, you can work a couple 12-hour shifts, get full-time benefits, and then you have the rest of the time off. And family situations, I think, kind of warrant what jobs you take. I mean, that's why, I'll be honest, that's why I got into public health. It fit with or school health. It fit with my family, you know. So that used to be a big seller. You work Monday through Friday, you get weekends off, you get, you know, so
And I've always said, if I give you $1 an hour raise today, you'll come back next week wanting another $1. If you give them a good work environment, you give them benefits, you give them time off, and show that you value them,
The environment.
you keep them. But it's hard to recruit with that. It's easier to recruit with $1. And retention then is about what I do for you, why I make this a good place to work.
And I can tell you, it doesn't matter where you live, right? I'm having these same conversations in Wichita. I live in Derby, right? We have 25,000, just became a first class. Same thing, right? We have recruiting wars going on, especially in the police departments. You've probably read about that, right? That Park City is having a signing bonus, which means that, right, the county sheriff is losing people, the Wichita Police Department. But when they get that bonus, they also have to sign a contract that says, you're staying for 5 years because we're gonna get back out of you what we put in. And by then, you have an opportunity, right, to keep them. You also have to know something about the newest generations, right? Their average work experience is 2 to 3 years is all they're gonna stay. So how do we manage that, right? Saying, we're gonna use you to your best ability and to your best skills, and in 3 years, we're gonna anticipate they're gonna move on, and then the next round's gonna come in, right? So it's a huge, it's a clash at this point. All right, it's 10 o'clock. Let's take a break. Got 15 minutes, okay?
And there's some drinks and snacks out there. There are restrooms in here, and then at the top of the stairs, there's some restrooms.
Yeah, they came on Monday.
Okay, so we talked a little bit this morning, and we came up with some things that we talked about what we do well, which is over here in the red. We talked about opportunities, and we talked about what we shouldn't be doing any longer, or what we should evaluate to think about what we should be doing moving forward. So, this is going to be a walking exercise. You can stand up. I want you to take a piece of paper or make a mental note. I want you to look, if you can read my writing, on these flip charts. What are 3 things for you personally that are key moving forward? Maybe a priority, maybe something to look at, something not to do, something to enhance, whatever it looks like. I want you to think about what we wrote here. You might have to get up, because I know y'all can't read every sheet of paper from where you're sitting.
I'm glad you can continue that, because all I heard was some of you can't read.
From where you're sitting, be polite, and I want you to think about 3 things that really, really resonates with you, that we want to talk a little bit more about as we start thinking about themes. So I'm going to give you a few minutes.
Is that one from each section, or just?
Nope, just whatever resonates with you, or if you have a theme, something that really you want to make sure we keep on the table.
See what 3 keys.
3 key things for you personally that you want to pay attention to, or might that. Don't look at that black sheet right there.
Okay, that's not a good one.
That's not a good one.
Okay.
That's my getting ahead. But any other sheet on the walls, what resonates with you? What is focused for you? 3 things. And when you get done, you can have a seat and move on. Hold that. Hold those things.
That's scary.
I know. There's a lot in there.
What's your husband do again?
My husband works for Central County Public Works Department. He oversees all the road and bridge construction and the testing.
What's his name?
Randy Downs. Randy Downs. Yeah, he's been there since he was 18.
Gotcha.
40-something.
Well, the reason I actually worked for contracting in Wichita.
Oh, okay.
I was a project manager on the Manissa Bridge.
Oh, okay.
13th there.
Yep. Yep.
That was quite a project.
Yeah, before I came to WSU, I have a crazy career. I have an undergraduate degree in criminal justice, and so I worked for the district attorney's office, and then was a project manager, got hired to do project services. So my office built the downtown arena, I built the National Center for Aviation Training, the new 911 Center, so I did construction, and he did roads. So we had quite the lively conversation in our house.
It's kind of funny you mention that, because my wife and my family, for 30 years, been in there. And my wife was, we said, "You want me to drive?" And I said, "No, I'm fine, because I'm looking at construction."
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And she made one, we were driving down there, she was really rough, they were overlaying it. She goes, "Are they gonna mill this before they put the surface layer?"
Oh, I know, me
I'm
too.
going, "Oh my God."
Yeah, me too. It's like, what are they doing? So we were driving down Rock Road, and they forgot to take up the temporary striping.
Right.
And I said, what are we doing here? And he goes, oh, I know, I told him to come out here, get that stuff picked up. Yeah, he knows a lot more.
Well, and they were talking about, they built the Hoover Dam, and they poured so many hundreds of thousands of tons of cement.
Yeah.
And everybody in my family goes, "It's cubic yards of concrete."
Concrete, it's cubic yards.
My son actually got in trouble at school, because his teacher was talking about pouring cement.
Yeah.
He raised his hand, he says, it's not cement, it's concrete. He said, "You can't make bread without yeast, you can't make concrete without cement."
And so thank you for sharing, Ken.
And actually, his teacher kind of got pissed.
Yeah.
And called my wife, and she says, "Oh my God, here's the story."
Here's the why.
Well, he laughed about it, but it was just, yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
crazy.
My father-in-law said that we were out driving to North Carolina. And he said, he said, "I thought fucking was so bad." But he said, "You're driving down the road, your head just going back and forth, But anyway.
Every time I tell my husband, where are we going? Are you kidnapping? Where are we going? Oh, I gotta just look at this bridge. I gotta just look at this road.
Yeah.
No, we don't. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go home.
I'm sure I'm good. Seen them all. When you're done and you have your 3 key things, have a seat.
Nancy, I saw you get shot.
Yeah.
Watch the board. Thank you, sir.
You know, it's.
That was the first thing
Yeah.
everybody needs to record.
I didn't for you.
Everything on it.
We would like to see that, so we can take a picture of that, Dave.
I'd be at face first in the car.
Good little chuckle.
All right, we almost have it. Almost have it. So that, oh, okay, well, you gotta look at that. Yeah. Can't let that go. The question now is, now that you've had a chance to re-look at anything, are we missing anything that we did not talk about? Are we missing anything that you can tell right now?
I don't know if what I wrote down was really on the list.
So you didn't listen and you didn't follow instructions, is that what you're saying? Okay, that's okay.
So we did miss
We
something.
must have missed something.
What would we have missed? Tina, tell me what we missed.
Okay, I guess I was gonna mention this earlier. I think the whole transportation needs to be explored and really see how much transportation is really needed here in our county, whether that's taking people outside of the county for work or getting people where they need to go within the county. But I know the issue that we have is that we are a big county and we have a lot of communities spread out. And how do you coordinate anything like that? But I really feel like that needs to be looked at before any action is taken.
And you're talking about people moving.
People moving, we provide transportation for seniors in Marion County, but I feel like probably that issue is much bigger than just that population.
Okay. Did we miss some other things? The floor is yours, my dear.
What I put for one of mine was improving the culture of the, the draw of the county as an employer. Like as our organization.
Okay, county and organization?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Did we miss anything else?
This back half of mine, my first one was fair paying jobs for employees in Marion County within a fair tax for the citizens.
That's a great goal. I mean, that's what you're after.
Well, that's what we gotta do. I mean, it's
But
not
you're
fair. Sometimes it's not fair.
Yeah, okay. And we had that up there, so that was a clear one, yeah. Anything that we missed that came to mind that you thought, oh, man, I wish we would have said this? Because it's not anywhere on our Post-its.
One of the difficult things we have is the training mandates and regulations that change regularly, that require each department in some way to comply with new or changing training regulations, mandates that we go with.
Okay. Anything else that struck you as missing?
Would childcare be something? Childcare services?
Okay. Okay.
I would say affordable housing for young families.
I'm gonna add the word quality.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
We don't have a lot of affordable housing, not where we want it to be. What else?
It's difficult because I was always told not to bring up a problem unless you have a solution. So this is all really tough for me, but all of our, we talk about taxes and people coming into the county. But how do we keep our tax dollars from leaving the county? We send a lot of tax dollars to our neighboring counties and we don't retain, as far as sales tax. How do we keep those low? It's getting tougher with online shopping.
Actually, it's getting better with online shopping.
Well, are we recouping some of that now?
Yeah,
At
the
one
online
time-
shopping is actually bringing it back here. So
And that's
whatever
wonderful.
point of sale is.
Right. You know, at first, early on, it wasn't, but
Yeah.
apparently is now. But
Yeah, that was this last
we
year.
have geographically, we're located The other counties having larger cities, that's where people go to spend their money.
So as far as
That's why
in-person goes.
Jeff
but
Bezos
Right.
stepped down as CEO because he's a quadrillionaire, he doesn't have to work, right?
It's-
With Amazon, right?
It's working in our favor. More high-speed internet, shop from home. It's actually working.
To some degree though, just so it's not at the expense of our local
Local.
businesses, our brick and mortar
Yeah.
businesses. And
I think we have an asset in the highways that run through this county. If you go up around Gardner and look at the warehouses, go down by Wichita, look at the warehouses being built, that may be something that our county should explore.
I'm sorry, like
The
industrial
warehouse-
sites or warehouses?
Industrial
Okay.
warehousing, strategic placement for those items. Maybe we have the acreage, well, maybe we don't have the workforce for that, but you gotta have one before the other, right?
Okay. Anything else we missed?
I didn't notice the word communication. Did I miss that?
Really? Oh my gosh. Yes, we had
It
it
was
all
somewhere.
over.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for that.
Well-
And I put internal and external, because you all talked a little bit about communicating outwardly to your citizens, but also having some internal within the organization, yes.
Right, 'cause even just with this group, we've got tremendous assets over here, and it's really hard to get that information to
Yeah.
us in that 15-minute segment
Sure.
once every 3 months.
Yeah.
And I really struggle with that. And then on the other hand, on the external, there's so many great ideas, and many of them have been brought up, but then once we go out to the public, we have trouble communicating the good side and the positive of those. So,
If you're not telling your story, somebody else is.
right, and how do we do that?
And how are they telling it, right? So,
Right.
yeah, how do you do that? Yes, thank you for that. I think that's critical.
You know, thinking outside the box, to use a cliche, we've talked about, you know, the training and stuff like that. Some of the bigger cities have, for instance, law enforcement, combined city and county forces. Maybe in some sort of way, mainly affecting me, but maybe that's something that we could do with a formal and informal approach to both the city and the state. We have KDOT here in town, we have the city in town, both struggle with resources and help. You know, again, just looking at that, is there something that can be used, and it's gonna take an agreement, you know, basically a buy-in by all the, you know, all the entities, but maybe that's something to look at too. You know, we talked about, you know, we try to help out towns and stuff when we're out doing things, but, you know, maybe there's more of a formal approach that we can do with that.
Yeah, there's a community down, Derby did this. They had a building inspector, but the town next door didn't and couldn't afford to hire one, so they each paid half of his salary. Spent half of his time in that city, half the time in this city doing the building inspection, right? They both got what they needed, so it's that partnership. Shared services are looking at how you can expand your capacity. Yeah, agreed. Perfect stuff. Anything else we missed that glared at you?
I think I missed it, glared at you.
I thought I was gonna get away. I had it in my hand. Go ahead.
No, I'm asking, what do you have that?
Oh, you guys, you know, the thing is I have a little bit of an advantage over you because I go to so many communities. And because I've been in local government so much, right, I have tons of things in my brain, but not everything works for every community, right? It just doesn't. So what we did someplace would never work here because of whatever, fill in the blank, right? And some things you're doing here would never work next door because of what you have, right? Not every community has a lake. What a great asset, right? Some communities wish they had the lake, but they don't. But could we make the lake better because that's a draw, right? And you said it perfectly earlier. You have to balance how much of everything, right? How big do you want to get? How small you want to get? And, you know, just like what happened in my city, in Derby. You know, I remember years ago, they had the Dillons. Like, that was the draw. We went because there was a grocery store and no other town around them had that. And now we have Olive Garden and Crumble Cookies and boutiques, and we have 2 Starbucks, right? And we have all this stuff, and now we're a city of first class. But not everybody was thrilled about that growth, They hated it, right? They hated it because they lost something in that. So there's tons of ideas out there, and there's lots of examples. It's just a matter of how do you fit that to Marion County, right? How does it fit with what you have and what your goals are? Because only y'all can answer that. So lots of examples. And I know you all keep up in your own fields, right? You know what's going on. You guys know what's going on in Sedgwick County and some other lakes and some other park systems and clerks and treasurer's offices. You guys know where you're going because you have professional associations. I would just say that just keep up on the information because you just never know when that little tidbit might be like, ah, this is my aha moment, right? But I can tell you, everything you said today, Wichita struggles with, right? We can't keep police officers. If you call Jeff Easter and talk to him, trying to keep people working in the jail, I mean, they had to lower the age from 21 to 18. I have 18-year-olds with violent offenders in the Central County Jail, largest jail in the state, 1,600 inmates, right? It's like 18 years old. I look at my 18-year-old.
Scares you, doesn't it?
Thank goodness there's some parameters in there, right? I mean, it's scary for him too. When the casino opened in Mulvane, just on the other side of the Central County line, everybody who was working in the local government went there because they were paying $5, $10 more an hour to have fun, right? Like play slots and blackjack dealers, you know. So I think that everybody has the same issues. We're competing for firefighters, we're competing for police officers. Park City has a, incentive program that's coming that's causing them to lose. So everybody has the same problems. It's just the scale in which we experience it, right? And population decline. The opposite is true in the Wichita metro area. It's the increase, right? Now we have to gear up to offer more services where others are, less. So it's almost the same issues, just on a different scale, almost everywhere you go. Yeah. Okay. Anything else we missed? Thousands of ideas. Just we got to find the good ones. Okay. So when I walked through and I figured out some themes, you guys picked 3 things. Who would love to share your priorities? What are the 3 things that you thought about?
My first 3 were recruit new workers,
Uh-huh.
New revenue sources, and then public education.
Okay.
As to what we do and don't do in the county.
Got it. Next.
I had recruitment, bringing young people back, and goal setting.
Okay. Got it. What else?
I had vision for the county, recruiting, and IT.
Okay.
Establish goals, grants, and IT.
Okay.
Mental health and drug problems.
Okay.
Is a major one for us. We have become a mental health holding facility, along with staffing and recruiting and funding.
Okay. Everybody's like, don't look at me. Don't do it. Don't look at me.
I looked at promoting anything that's negative to the county and continuing to pay for that. This is one that we should try to fix and not continue.
I'm sorry.
There was I think it's limit negative in organization.
Okay.
So, and then that, also the thing that kept reoccurring, the theme was attracting people back, whether that was through technology or with VOTEX or whatever.
Yeah.
It was all attract people back. And the other thing would be the goal setting with the administrator, kind of keeping the focus in one direction and allowing the cohesiveness.
Perfect. What else? What'd you pick out? Did anybody say anything different than what's already been said? Go ahead, Tina, because I know you're.
Kyle, I'm always gonna say. I put youth training, keeping young people, improving the culture and draw of the county organization, and then improve government efficiency.
Okay. Anything else on the list that hasn't been said? I don't want anybody to leave here
This kind
saying.
of goes hand in hand with economic development, but being able to market the assets that are already in place in the county.
Anything else that you haven't heard?
Well, promoting the lakes and the.
Marketing the assets, absolutely.
Serving the public.
Okay? Do you want to say more? What does that mean?
I think the better reputation that the county has in dealing with the public, the more we will be able to accomplish a lot of these other things.
Some way to get the public on board with everything, so that they also can help promote Marion County in a positive light.
Well, and I think what you said goes with Jonah. We serve a lot of public and we do it well. It's the one that has the complaint that everybody hears about. You can do 100 good things and one bad, and that's the one that gets spread across social media, across all forms of media.
Sure.
How you gonna fix the paper?
Easy. It's still
I mean, you
on.
kind of have to rely on those 5 people that you did something good for.
Well,
No, you're right.
What Travis is saying is we've got, and we all know it, we got a big problem when they don't get behind us or media.
We need community support, and we lose that with every negative story.
I think that's where you develop a relationship with the reporter.
I understand, yeah, I understand what she's saying, but you gotta remember that in their industry, they don't care what's true or false. All they're doing is trying to get people to buy the paper. I've done the same thing. I've sat down with the paper and tried to do things, and when it comes out, that's their spin on things. What they hear at the commission meeting may or may not be what they put in there. Maybe that's what they perceive. Yes, it should be a very valuable asset to us, but it does come back to be a liability also.
I want
But
a hot mic moment here, but I want to remind everybody that the camera on is still on. So if you feel like saying it, make sure you know it's being.
yeah, I'm just saying that we've all faced that, and you know, it's part of doing business.
And we talked about it. We talked about this idea of storytelling. So if you're not going to tell your story, somebody will. And then it's hard to get mad when they're telling it according to them, right? So on the flip side, that's why a lot of cities and a lot of counties have a pretty strong social media presence, right? We have lots of administrators and managers who write a blog, right? That's why they do it, to help inform, right? So when we talked about marketing and boosting, it's not just to recruit, but it's to, the citizens don't know what they don't know. That's my favorite thing to say. They don't know what they don't know. And it's up to us to help them know, right? And they don't know what if you ask anybody what a clerk does, they have no clue, right? But although the clerks are often the animal control officer and the budget officer and they do a lot of things, but most people just don't know what they don't know. So when you guys were talking earlier about educating, that's a real thing. And it takes effort, and it takes time, and it takes people, and it means doing tweet-alongs, and it means inviting people in, it's all that stuff. Anything else?
Yeah, years ago, well, that's been millenniums ago, I guess, when I was in school. We used to get tours of different offices, county, whatever. And, whoever the department head was always real appreciative that we came in, and they, try to explain, something we could understand. But I don't know that happens much anymore. And I don't know, maybe it's our responsibility as a leadership of the county to say schools.
We used to partner with
You
our
need to find
government
out what's going
classes.
on.
Yeah, we used to partner with our government classes.
Yeah.
The teachers in the government class and say, you know what, it's City Hall Day, come on down. I had a government teacher that assigned us to go to a council meeting or commission meeting just to listen and then come back and talk about what is it that they were discussing, right? What does a clerk do? What does the treasurer do? What are they doing over there at the senior center, right? Because they just don't know what they don't know. So I think that there's great opportunities related to that.
And well, 10 years ago, I don't know, they still have that student court? They still-
Mock court?
Mock trial.
Well, I don't know if they're doing, I don't think they're doing it right now, but they have within the last 5 years.
Yeah, I knew they had.
Had a class that has come in.
It was pretty eye-opening for a lot of the students who were involved in that.
Any other ideas related to themes, the 2 or 3 things you guys wrote down that has not been said? Have we covered it? Y'all said the same things?
I don't know if it's already been said. It is, if we move towards an economic growth vision on how that's achievable, whether it's tax incentives or it's abatements or, I don't know, I'm sure it said that in here somewhere.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else that hasn't been said that you wrote down? No, or not willing to share, either way?
The only specific one that I don't know, I say young people, one of my 3 was young people need to get involved, but when you're a working family at 20s to 35, 40, you don't have time to get involved in, unless it's in an evening or something like that, because you gotta go to work every day. And so, but we need people to get involved in the 30s to 45-year range. And I mean, in our local city in Peabody, why, we definitely need it, and it's not happening. They can always pass it off.
Anything else? So when we've been talking a lot, and basically I broke them down into these basic themes, right? There's probably some things underneath that we'll want to spend a little bit more time on, but alternative service delivery, IT, high-speed internet, service priority, storytelling or marketing, so to overcome the mistrust of government, the infrastructure planning, quality of life, efficiency. I just put an org assessment. We talked about staff, we talked about service levels, we talked about tasks, and in balance with the population versus the service levels, right? We spent a lot of time on that. Improved communication both internally and externally, eco-devo efforts, recruiting businesses, incentives, etc. Diversifying funding sources, an administrator position, partnerships, reviewing assets and what to invest in. And we've added these things: mental health, drug issues, serving the public, right? Improving the reputation, which goes in what we've talked about a little bit about marketing and how we build that new culture. And then involving citizens. So out of everything that we talked about this morning, these are the basic themes that you all came up with. So if we have these themes, right, what are those 3 or 4 key areas, right? We can't do all this all at once. But are there some key areas that we think we will get the best solutions or conclusions out of if we spend some time on it? So this is the open forum about talking about the sort of the pros and cons of these themes and where do you spend your time.
I know you moved past, but I got to add one more.
No, sorry. Cut it off, no, go ahead.
In addition to new business, retaining old ones.
Okay.
We've lost a few, and a lot of times it's hard to ever get it back.
Especially last year.
Yeah.
What are those 3 or 4 things that are key in your minds? I'm going to start putting stars by it the most I hear about it.
Well, obviously, you have to have a goal before you.
Well, obviously.
Well,
I put that in there. Okay. I'm going to put priorities and goals and vision. How about I do that? Okay. So, I have goal and vision. Okay. What else?
I would say to caveat, or to, piggyback off that, put that with the infrastructure planning, just the planning for everything, goals, you know, the big picture, future.
And infrastructure is anything that you all have, any
Yes.
asset, any building, any, you know, parks, little lake, roads, bridges, whatever your infrastructure is, okay?
Well, even that, I mean, even our people. I mean, our people are assets,
Sure.
so.
I think you could say marketing, I think, and I think that's important, but we've seen how many different entities try and come up with marketing plans for their town, the county as a whole. I mean, that's really hard to do. I think every department in here, every commissioner could think about their own level of PR, you know, how they're selling the county.
But maybe that's what you need,
It's,
right?
and I think, and I was gone for quite some time, but I think the commission can look at how many different areas have you tried to sell this county? And to what level of success was it? I don't, I'm not a marketing expert, but I think.
Yeah, I really feel like what we've done before has not.
Yeah.
There hasn't been, and I think a lot of it is just because it just didn't work. No, I don't know.
Well,
There was a reason why.
Well, it's the
No,
way it always was, the way it always was.
Economic development takes a long time.
Sure.
I mean, it may take 10 years before what you did
But it
this
also,
year.
it also takes more than one person.
Yes, I mean, it's gotta keep
So
going.
what it needs is
Consistency.
a group that has a vision to
A
push
goal.
forward. You can't just have a person without giving them the vision, you know, to be able to move it. And that's where I think we fall down a lot, and then trying to get the different groups to have the same vision, you know. I just think it's a huge task. I don't see,
It's been talked about so many times, I mean, it's easy to put up there, but how do you quantify it? How do you grab a hold of it and say, this is the goal and the vision for Marion County, but I need every community to support it?
right.
That's really tough. That almost becomes an unfunded mandate to our cities because the county has this goal. I mean,
Well, and I
around
think
Especially when you've got economic development in the towns themselves.
Right,
You know, you don't wanna be butting heads with them.
totally agree.
And my
Do you have some
perception
sort
of
of,
economic development, from what I've seen in this county, or mostly in this county, is, okay, you wanna put together an economic development board. What type of people gravitate to that?
People who
Most
have
of them are very strong-willed. Okay, then you get the board put together. Well, now the power struggle begins. And I think you see that over and over and over, you know, where there's a lot of people out there that have really good ideas, but they're, you know, more mildly mannered, I guess you could say. And how do you get those people interested in those kind of things? Because in rural counties, I don't care what board you look at, a lot of them are the same names. There are multiple boards.
Unless they're appointed.
And
They run.
not.
What else is a
age
priority?
discrimination, but 60-year-old vision versus a 20-year-old's vision of where this county should go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough.
What are you saying?
I'm saying.
We know what he's saying, Dave. Let's just not go there.
Okay.
I'm
Other,
in the middle, yeah.
other priorities that we should be paying attention to. Because we can't do it all, as you guys have said. What's important? What does the county, as an organization, need to get behind, or thought about, or more information on, or, because this is a little bit about goal setting, right? A little bit about what are we gonna spend our time on?
So, I'm just gonna beat the dead horse, but I came from a city government, and, the administrator is something I firmly feel behind. It was our grant writing, it was keeping our school oriented, it kept us educated on decisions to make. It was a lot of things that Tina does now, but she didn't need to be here till 9 o'clock every night.
And I think that helps with the communication side. I mean, I think it helps with a lot of areas with that administrative position.
Any,
That's the person that builds a relationship with your media outlet. You know?
I also I like the idea of a commissioner or two actually sitting in on the department head meeting.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, in meeting time, it's just,
Not the time to be
you know,
debating.
and sometimes you're just not as open.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, you know, if you can't get the administrator position, you need to do something more like that. Just so that you can communicate and educate.
I've seen a city that had weekly department head meetings, that might be a little much, but
Yeah.
if you had a monthly department head meeting, that we could sit with two at a time and discuss things, I think that's a good start for communication.
Or the one-on-one, you know, of a couple commissioners assigned to departments. Because department
Sure.
head meetings for everybody to tell what I think,
Yeah.
you know, but the other thing is, what about having the department heads spending some time in other departments also, so they know what
okay, we're solving
they have to go
problems.
through.
Hold those thoughts, because we'll get to
Okay,
the
well,
whole
I can-
solving it and ideas. Right now, I want to know what we're gonna try to solve. Communication.
I think it's
Sorry, I'll
important on the economic development side, I think it's important that the city and county work together. Because what's good for one is good for the other, whether it be good for this one or this one at this moment, but in the long run, it will benefit all. And I think it's sometimes hard to get everybody to look beyond my little bucket here.
Sure.
You know, if we look at the whole picture, okay, if one community gets this, it will benefit all of us in some way in the future by bringing more in possibly on the other community getting it, or the county getting it, something. It's not just benefiting one particular group.
Do you all have some sort of process in place where the county meets with the cities on any kind of, okay.
Not at this point. I mean, we have done a couple meetings in the past, but we don't have anything.
Where there's a flow of information that comes. Okay.
In the past, town hall meetings have become too confrontational.
I'm not talking about that, I'm just talking about where
Ends up-
a commissioner or in your, whoever the lead official is, if it's not an administrator, meets with and has a relationship with the other cities and about what's going, you know what I mean? I just didn't know if there was a mechanism.
Like a council of governments.
Like a council, yeah.
There's some, I mean, I'm very limited, I mean, but, you know, I meet fairly often with Hillsborough and Gossel. I mean, at least once every other month with both of those.
The city manager,
Well, the city manager, or the mayor, or
Okay.
whoever they have.
yeah, business manager.
I know that if they're in our district, it kind of,
Helps.
well, yeah, it kind of brings the fringes back into the center.
What else? Is there anything else that, so right now we have, I think we can fold some things in. So this whole idea of goals and vision goes into talking about service delivery, priorities, staffing, those kinds of things. What's happening inside the organization, setting goals for and a vision interior. Some sort of storytelling or marketing. Not setting a vision for the whole entire county, but what can you do to talk about the county in a way that brings people here if that's the desire. Then this idea of planning, and I'm calling it infrastructure and asset planning. So the planning could be reviewing all of your assets in the county and what to invest in and putting together a plan so that you know this year, next year, whatever the year is. Any kind of planning document helps keep you focused so that the focus doesn't turn to whoever steps into the commission meeting and they want something, right? Or into a department. So if you can say, you know, we have this vision, we have these goals, this is what we're working towards, it helps create not so many priorities, right? Not so many people in the public saying, I want this, I want this, I want that, where you can be more focused. So some sort of a planning effort. And then looking at the administrator who can help with communication, building relationships, looking at partnerships, because that would be their job. And then eco-devo, right? Whatever that looks like, either retaining, recruiting businesses, or thinking about incentives. Is that a bucket list?
I know that a lot of eco-devo people also kind of ebb and flow with as administrators. Like administrator from Hillsborough has an economic development background.
Matt?
Matt.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
WSU. Yes.
Sure.
They know each other.
Yes, Matt and I go way back.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, so they kind of fit the same box.
Yeah, they cover a lot of
Yeah.
lot of stuff, but it has to be a priority, right? It has to be intentional if you move forward. So the eco-devo, and that is the recruiting, retaining businesses. We have the administrator, which is communication, partnership. What else did you say about the administrator? Partnerships.
Grants, efficiency.
Yeah. And then you have planning. There's some planning in here. So it's an organizational assessment. I'm going to use the big words just so I know what that involves. Organizational assessment, a CIP, and a strategic plan. Which really comes back to, the strategic plan really goes to the goals and visions. And, yeah, CIP is infrastructure and assets. Yeah?
Would you fill in on the administrator? You said efficiency, grants and efficiency
So funding, that was the other piece, okay.
for administrator, yes.
Yeah, that's a little bigger, I'll put it as its own.
Okay.
Verse. Does that capture it? You got 1, 2, 3,
I did too.
4. You could probably put anything in any of these boxes, so, just so you know. Anything in any of those boxes. All right, so if we think about these bigger boxes, these 4 things, how will we do it? Right? How do we get these things done? What are some things that we can do to move it forward? Move something forward. This comes back to some of the ideas that you guys were starting to dig into, right? How can we dig in? So let's just talk about eco-devo. Recruiting and retaining business. This is the part where you guys talk. What can we do? Not everything has to be a lot of heavy lifting, but what are some things that we can do?
It comes down to what's been tried in the past. It's just a few more safeguards put in place, I suppose.
I think you have to work in partnerships with the cities that already have experience. We've got cities that have experience in it. I mean, if we can be an asset to them or vice versa, it's more, I see it as more of a partnership. You know, we can provide as a county a lot of different resources.
Sure.
That, I think it's a partnership.
Knowing who we have, I think it's fine, but the safeguard you'd want to have is, you know, well, we don't want that over there, we want it here, and then they start getting the battle, but
Well,
the ones that are in county is good for the whole, for the cities too, so.
So from an Eco perspective, we can reach out to the cities and see how we can partner or provide resources or engage in those conversations a little bit more than maybe what we have done. What else in that area?
And I think the commission's on the right track in trying to go back to the reorganization of the countywide Economic Development Council. You're not doing that?
No.
Oh, I thought you had talked about that.
That's leadership.
Yeah.
Oh, leadership, Marion County.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, maybe
Yeah,
that's
that's a
something
different
that
program.
could be,
you've done both.
I know. Yes. Because I think that's important.
Partner with leadership.
Yes, let's say that.
Are you, is what you're suggesting, Susan, to develop a countywide group
Well,
from different areas?
It's been done in the past where at times it was quite successful because I know when I was a part of it, that was the one time, not the one time, but one of many times, I'm sure, where everybody came together as a county. And there was one or two representatives from each area of the county, including the cities. And everything was kind of left at the door and people sat down and had genuine conversations about economic development without any, concerns about one area having more than the other. And because you have to have that buy-in for economic development, no matter what level it's on, whether it's city or county. And the only way to get the buy-in is to have other people be a part of that council to support it.
So you had a model, I'm sorry, it was.
The county commission supported a county economic development group.
Okay.
And that could be a part of Leadership Marion County. I mean, that could be somewhat a part of that in some way.
Because you want to grow the local homegrown business and help them.
You want to help.
You want to search them out and help them grow.
You want to support what you have and be available for what could be. Yes.
Because we got a lot of businesses in the county we don't even know about.
I know, and
We found that out with some of the CARES loans.
Yeah.
People come up out of the woodwork, never heard of them before.
Yeah, I would definitely say we've got a lot of specialized people in the county that are looked over, that are just.
You know, we need to help them get out of their garage.
They don't have storefronts.
Yeah, they do amazing things. And they're just,
And that group
nice
is
treasures
responsible
to me.
for like countywide brochures and promoted the businesses that were here and, events and that sort of thing. It was, a countywide effort.
I'm gonna put down here, what we call an asset map. And until you really know what you have, you don't know what you have. So that's a great point, is understanding what your assets are and the specialized professionals that are here. I was saying earlier that, I don't know if you've ever been to Bueller, but one of a very, very, very successful tech company is there, who happened to be mayor at one point. And he could have went anywhere, but he was from Bueller, and he came back, built a brand new building downtown, lots of people work for him, and lots of high-paying jobs, and he's making lots of great opportunities for money. But he lives here because it's inexpensive, and he likes it, and it's his hometown, right? So, but who would have thunk? Who would have thunk, right, that somebody was there? So understanding what your assets are, and then what are those special professionals that maybe you can assist or provide resources to. Anything else with what you can do with EcoDevo?
I just think whatever is done, it's hard to know what to do and what model to use,
Yeah.
but I just don't want the smaller communities to be left out of it.
Right.
and that's what I was kind of saying.
We have neighborhood revitalization, and I don't know how much the city promotes that anymore. Either. A lot of people will build in there like they didn't have it existing.
Well, and that's on the thing, is that something we should keep doing, because
Right.
it's
Every
not
county
serving
around us
its
has it
intended
too.
purpose.
Yeah. And it's
That
not
particular
specialized
program.
anymore because I feel like every county has it, or most counties have it. I mean, it's nice for ones that do it.
So this idea of maybe evaluating current programs to to see if they work? Is that what we're saying?
I think they work, but I just don't know. I think they were originally intended to bring business here.
They're not as effective as they should be.
Right. Now when almost every county has one, there's no longer that incentive.
Any general thoughts about EcoDevo?
Well, we all like it, but
But,
there's some,
I wish I hate that word.
there's some egos that's gonna have to shut down and shut up. I mean, because we can't get along with that kind of philosophy that you was talking about earlier that happened the last time we tried it. I mean, it's just gonna have to, something's gonna have to be flat out in a group that's really involved and wants something, not because they've got something. And it's just, I've seen it, I mean, I've witnessed it 2 or 3 times now, both the city and county commission.
So let's talk about the administrator. There it is. What do we do? What do we consider? What do we think about? What are actions that we can take to move this theme forward?
Find the money.
It's already in the budget. It's in the budget.
But after you get the money, finding the right person.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very key.
That's the hardest.
Well, I think developing what specifically you want, what your expectations are for
Exactly.
that person, because
Yes.
in a traditional county manager, administrator situation, that person becomes the supervisor for your appointed department heads generally. And it's a part of that process is figuring out exactly what you want that person to do and being willing to relinquish those responsibilities, if they're currently yours, to that new person or that new position.
Well,
So that's part of it.
This is a different structure of government, so I would also say you have to understand from the relationship that the elected body has now will change and should change in this forum. So probably that, we talked about earlier, that exploration of what the new form of government will look like, because it hasn't been in place, right? Have you ever had an administrator? Ever? Never? Okay.
Tina.
You want him to be you want him to be in charge, or you want him to write grants? I mean, what his duty would be? I mean, the road
I think
grants,
some of those things are
Different
actually
different-
laid out in statute,
Yeah.
as far as that goes.
is okay.
Mhm.
I think the money thing, obviously, everybody looks at what it costs to get the administrator, but I think you gotta look at the other side, the benefits of it. Efficiency and stuff like that. For instance, me, I get to go to the commission meeting every week, and that's, a lot of times I go in there that the stuff that I'm giving them could already been given to the administrator, and it could be sent out ahead of time, so they may not even need to discuss it at the commission meeting, as long as everybody knows it. So there's the savings of time for the commission, as well as myself, and there's always a communication issue. That the other thing is, we're talking about goals and everything else. Well, if everyone's department heads reports to them, they can now say, you know what, I'm seeing in 3 departments they're looking to do this. Maybe we can combine something or do something to help them. I think a person like that is, being, in management and stuff like that. I think that's huge to try to combine resources and the communication. So
You find the right person, they're educated to be a manager. That is their job within the government. They went to school, they know how to manage government. And I'm not taking away from our commission, but there's not a city administrator or county administrator sitting amongst you.
Yeah, what goes
That's
back
not
to-
your specialty. You hire somebody that is an expert in a field and you make them a department head.
It goes back to what Randy said, it's just, some of our rules were written 100 years ago.
Sure.
And that's not the world we have today. There's a lot of bills that have passed, and a lot of things that have taken place. We're just not the experts
But I think Tina's right, that when you're thinking about this new way of doing business, you'll wanna make sure that you understand it, right? Understand clearly what an administrator would do, and should be doing, and what that means to the department heads too, right? What does that look like? So yeah, I think you're right. I think there's an evaluation process. I think there's a job description process and task definition. Because you said it earlier, that there's a lot of things that potentially the administrator would be doing that you may not have the ability to do now because you have a lot of things on your plates.
I bet that somebody with Wichita State would
You
be
think?
very, very
I
good
don't
about
know.
helping in that situation, you know, so.
Well, you know, I mean, I think part of it is, you're right. I mean, if you're thinking about, you know, education, and I have an MBA, just like a lot of city managers do. And it does teach you something different.
So are you giving us a job application here? Okay.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
We have a lot, we have to like.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
2 lakes?
Yes,
I might be in.
Yes.
I might be in 2 lakes. I don't know. But you know, it is important. All those things, but to know all of that before you advertise would probably is a good idea.
The bigger part of it is selling it to the public.
Yeah.
I started on the commission and right away it was on the ballot. And it was voted down in the county.
For what was on the ballot?
Administrator.
Should the city or the county hire an administrator was the
Oh,
question.
okay, got
And
it.
it got voted down.
But it was a very poor,
No legwork.
there was no education. It just got on the ballot.
And I, go ahead.
No, you.
Well, I was gonna say, I think alongside that too is like, there's a, as far as not necessarily department heads or commissioners, because we have our own opinion, but like employees. So like you have employees right now that a lot of them in Marion County think that they deserve a raise or they deserve more. And then on top of that, you're just gonna go and hire another position on for 80 to 100,000 a year. And those employees that have been there.
Now you got me sold. There you go. So he's throwing out figures. I don't know.
Well, those employees that have been there, you know, they
Yeah.
look at that and they kind of see it as yeah. So there's, I mean,
balance.
obviously as a department head and as a commissioner, it would benefit us tremendously. But there's a lot of other employees within the county that think, you know, that's just kind of a waste of money, or we could have been using this for other things. So there's a other side of it too.
But yeah, I was gonna say it's education, because honestly, you know, I'll throw this out there, is when they were looking for a county engineer and I came in, they actually called a former engineer that worked for Kansas Association, that worked for Kansas, because he was the expert on what they had questions about. So, you know, that's what, you know, checking with your, you know, with those other people, but the education of you know, what you're trying to do and stuff. And it is difficult, because especially in my situation where I have 33 to 35 people at any one time, I face that all the time. That, you know, well, why is such and such getting paid more? I said, here's the deal. You know, I don't come back and say, well, I like them better than you, because, you know, but it's an education. It's just objective. This is why they're getting paid. Stuff that happened before I got here, I have no, you know.
I guess my question would be, why are you talking about what people make?
Well, that's a good question, but that's what, you know, I've got,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, honestly, that's, you know, there's a lot of talk that
Yeah.
way, and there shouldn't be. And then, you know, let's do your job. And I've told people, if you don't like your job, then, you know, please go somewhere that you want to. I will give you a glowing recommendation, but because if you're not happy, nobody else is going to be happy.
Yeah, education. Anything else in this area of administrator, either pre-planning or thoughts about what needs to be reviewed or looked at?
Space.
Space, okay.
And resources for that person.
Space comes into, no matter what we talk about in our county, we don't have space, and we need space. Register of deeds come full of the files and things, and storage of equipment for emergency equipment, stuff, we just don't have space, and space is a big thing.
What about acres? Just not a lot of space.
This space is not, yeah.
It's the building structure.
Yeah.
Don't have a roof.
And I guess that's one of the things I've kind of wondered about too. I've worked for other places that have had a formal process for record retention. Now, I don't know whether the counties or, some of these are set up by the state, but you keep this for so long, this for so long, and then you get rid of them. But I realize, you know, like with Rebecca's stuff there, I mean, geez, when you keep stuff for what, 140 years, 150 years in there, it's tough to replace that or whatever else. But you know, what is the time frame maybe for that kind of stuff? I know it's a daunting task. You know, I lost one of my office rooms down there with Road and Bridge that went to the attorney that had to have more storage. And so I don't know whether that's something to look at, but and I understand the attic in the courthouse is pretty full too. So I just don't, but like I said, and not only is it a daunting task, but that's gonna take quite a few resources, you know, people to do that or whatever else, but I don't know what the answer is either, because I don't know what those legal definitions are for all that stuff.
Everything has a record retention plan, right?
Yeah.
Longevity, a schedule. Yeah, I did this, when I, just a little insight with that, you know, in Sedgwick County, times 1 million, right, records. And we just brought in temporary help that had been vetted through a process, and that's all they did was scan documents for like 3 months, 4 months. And when it all got done, everything was electronic. The things we had to keep according to the schedule were kept, some things sent to the salt mine, and some things destroyed and documented. So I think you're right. I think sometimes when you can look at what are you storing and how are you storing it, and it doesn't make sense to store it and where to store it, that could be a really good planning efficiency consideration. Absolutely. And I put technology too, because there's some things that people can't do certain things with. But yeah, it's all set up. Anything on the administrator, because we're going into that whole planning, because that seems to be a big thing, right? Those goals and vision setting. Anything else on the administrator? We'll leave it up here for just a second. Let's talk about planning, because some of the things you talked about was the org assessment, which goes into this efficiency. We talked about the infrastructure, what I call the CIP, capital improvement, which is all the assets, and then just the strategic plan from goals and envisioning. What do we want to talk about related to the planning element for the county?
What Travis said, as far as our goal, direction, how big do we want to be? How small do we want to be? What is that goal? Where is that target?
And I think there's some public input into that too. What's expected of us? I mean,
Do more with less.
does the public,
Do more with less.
I understand that, but one, they don't know what they don't know, and we don't know what they want if we don't ask, or what their expectation is.
Yeah, one of the elements of a strategic plan is you cannot do it without having public input.
Right.
We have to do focus groups or interviews, and you have to talk to people, because that helps inform. Sure.
Yeah, when they call 911, they expect the phone to be answered, they expect an answer.
Can you hold,
So
please?
that's my business, you know.
Of course.
Aside from that, I don't think they have a lot of.
Other than that, we don't.
Well, I mean, as far as my business, they don't.
And with the planning, it needs to be somewhat in place, so no matter who is on the commission, you know, how that works out. The planning continues, the goals
Perpetual.
continue,
Right.
the
Yeah.
policies continue, so that they don't, you know, change and keep having to go back to the beginning and do all this again.
And that's what, the goal has to be smart, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely.
Timely.
Right?
And then evaluate and reevaluate, right?
So, but I mean, by being smart, it has, that should be within a timeline that the commission doesn't change, maybe, you know, short term
Yeah.
versus long.
Yeah, sure.
So,
You would set the tone for, is this a 3-year plan, is this a 2-year plan, is it a
Right.
5-year plan? You can't probably plan any longer than 5 years, although
Right.
some try, but it moves a lot. So it'll
wouldn't have a
depend on.
lot of commission change during that, I
Yeah.
mean.
Yes.
One of the things that I've always thought about, especially my road and bridge, whatever else is, it comes down to revenue. Plain and simple, the more revenue we have, the more we can do. Well, I always bring up the adage of when I was working with KDOT, back in the late 80s, the state highways just were terrible. And it got so bad that the constituents actually went to their legislators and said, look, we want better roads, we're willing to pay for it. So KDOT, they went to KDOT and said, hey, this is what we want to do. So KDOT come up with an 8-year plan of basically exactly what roads they were going to build, what roads they were going to design, what right-of-way they're going to buy. Every county was going to get X amount of money. And they said between taxes and bonds and everything else, it's going to cost $2.3 billion. But they were very, very itemized in what they're going to do. They actually talked to the contractors and said, hey, we're going to ramp up here. Are you willing to work with us? They said yes. So KDOT did it and basically got done with this project within 0.1% of budget, on time, and the people loved it. Let's do it again. So that's why Kansas has some of the best roads around, is because they have put forth that, but again, it was very transparent, and the fact is, this is what we want to do. Well, maybe that's something that we could do on a smaller scale here, whether it's bonds or whatever. I mean, but I think that's what we face in county government, is that people have the perception that we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, or whatever else. You're just wasting our money. Well, if we can say, this is what we're going to do, and we can uphold that, then that gives us the credibility to do that. Now, I'm not, again, but it's just the idea that if you've got, if you're asking for extra revenue or whatever else is, you've got to be able to justify what you're getting. And like I said, and it worked great up until the late 2000s when the economy kind of went downhill. Well, unfortunately, KDOT had planned to have all this money in there, was earning interest and things like that, that they could make the payments on things until everybody else started raiding what they call the Bank of KDOT. So that that money was in there. Well, they would take, a couple $100 million here, a couple $100 million here. So that's why the state really hasn't done much in the last several years on roads, is because they haven't had that money. But again, it comes down to the fact is of, this is the money we want for this stuff here, and
Right,
if we
it's
fall
called a
through,
CIP plan.
yeah, so
You look at all of your assets, whatever that looks like. It could be the lake, it could be buildings, it could be whatever, roads, bridges. And you think about, all right, here's what, there's the would likes and there's the must haves, right? And you have some must haves and you know how long you need to predict that. And then you have some would likes that we need to put in the plan, even if it's just incrementally to try to do that. And then you wrap that around the budget dollars that you have outside of grants and additional funding that may come because of special programming. And you work within that, right? So when somebody says, well, we really want this fixed up, we do too, right? But we have $1 million and we have $50 million worth of bonds, and this is what we're going to do for the next 5 years. And so I'm going to put up here some sort of CIP consideration, because you can look at your budgets, where the dollars are going. It's very clear, right? And so how do you shift that if you want to shift it? And that kind of sets you up for figuring out where are the dollars that are coming in, and how are we allocating them, and what's most important to us, right? Not everything's important.
Yes.
Not everything's a priority.
But
right?
all the must-haves would either be a
must-haves.
very, very good rock road or a paved road in front of every house in the county. Because that's what I face, is this is what I pay taxes for, this is what I want. So
that's not what you pay taxes for.
I know,
you
but
pay
I mean,
taxes
that's...
for fire and police and buildings and roads and all kinds of whatever else you have.
Sure.
Parks that you want. So it's an education. You all said that many times. So anything else from the area of planning? How can you make progress around planning?
I think that it's important to maybe look, obviously, we do have a comprehensive plan, and so I think a lot of people may not even be aware of what's in that plan. And so it would be good.
How new is it, or how old is it?
Just the last year.
It was based on the 2016 census.
Oh, it was?
And
Okay.
it was updated in 2018.
Okay.
And then we have an old strategic plan that's
How
old
2000.
and expired, I think.
Oh, 2003.
Yeah, it's old.
Don't go back, don't go back.
Okay.
But the comp plan could help with some relevancy. I don't know who developed it or how it was developed, right?
Planning commission.
Okay, and I don't know what links they went to, I don't know if you did community engagement with that piece and.
We did.
Okay, good, so you have the elements that can help provide you some guidance about what the public might want related to your assets, because I'm guessing you have most of them in there, to some degree. But the other side of the asset was what we talked about too, was the asset map. Do we know what we have, and have we looked at it, right? Not everything is in the comp plan, but it might be, I don't know. I haven't seen your comp plan.
No, and I think
Okay.
there should be a way to marry these two
Yeah.
plans. Yeah. The county has, the organization doesn't have a direction before we can
Sure.
link them together. I think.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Anything else related to planning or how you can make progress? Planning is a lot of data gathering, but you need the data gathering to understand how to modify or change direction in all these other areas, right? I had a commissioner tell me one time, well, we don't have money for that. Well, you have money, it's a matter of how you choose to use it. And that's what you guys are, starting the process here is how do you choose to use it, right? There's money, it's just choices, unfortunately. We can't afford everything we want. Gosh, wouldn't it be wonderful if we did? Okay, anything else related to planning? Any elements or actions that might be helpful to move it forward a little bit? All right, the last kind of key was the funding. I'm sure you have some wonderful things to say about that. How can we make progress or think about funding at this point? What makes sense? What are some action steps? How do we move this needle?
One of the things I think that we can promote is the education of the way we use stuff now, assets. And 2 points is the fact is that a lot of when I first got here, a lot of people were really complaining about the roads and whatever else and didn't really understand what it took to build a good road or whatever else. And when I made up a 5-year plan, I really went back to the basics on design and stuff. I think that helped a lot. And, just for that knowledge. I mean, and I've told anybody, if there's ever any questions, I would love to sit down and talk to people about that to educate them. And I know when Commissioner Mueller was running and they interviewed him and said, our tax is too high or too low, he responded back, are we getting what we're paying for? Or is the perception that we're getting what we're paying for? I thought that was a very good response because it's true. I mean, some people are going to say they're too high, other people are going to say they're too low, and that expectation is out there. Well, but I mean, some people.
I have a game, believe it or not. It's a huge board game. It's called the Built Game, and it's an education piece for citizens that come in, and we play a board game, and it's about what do I want from me, my house, right? What do I want from my neighborhood, and what do I want from my community? Well, as you can imagine, when they design a community, they want all the garbage, right, on the outskirts, right? The livestock plants, the water treatment plants, and they want the coffee shop and the park and all this stuff near their homes. Well, we don't build like that. We build differently, but it's interesting how the aha moments that citizens have when they're thinking like, oh yeah, like I can't have all the cool stuff right near my house. It's a give and take, and they realize how hard it is to plan a community, to plan assets, to engage in that, and it's just about education, and unfortunately, that's a heavy lift to try to get people to know how this is, right? They see what's in front of them, around their home, out in front of their street, whatever it is, and it's really hard to get the whole community picture, the whole county picture. And not easy, but it is an education, and we can do it. I mean, we can educate them by bringing them in and showing them what we do and figuring that stuff out, but yeah, it's an effort, it just is. So when it comes to funding, if we can educate about how we use assets, how we deliver services, right, that might help better understand funding. The other pieces that you all talked about related to funding is the diversity of it, right? How do we think about grants? How do we think about programs? How do we think about shifting what we do fund So how can we make progress? What do we need to evaluate or look at related to that? That's the problem, huh? That's the problem.
Well, kind of turning this back to you is there anything that you could that give us ideas on what we could do from what you've learned in your distinguished education and experience?
Well, I think you guys are already on the path. I mean, you know where your traditional funding sources come from, right? You know how they ebb and flow. You know, you've seen them over the last year and how they ebb and flow. And there's lots and lots and lots and lots, believe it or not, of programs and funding that comes from the federal level and the state level. It's a matter of, do you have time to really understand what those look like, right? Because if they're not doing a good job advertising them, there's no way that you all would know. The other side of that is for some of the other different kinds of projects, the different kinds of programming that you deliver in your county, what are those grant opportunities? But it requires somebody to bird dog those, right? You have to know where the lists are. You have, I mean, we act as a business, right, in my center. And so we are always on that site that gives out grants, that looks at RFPs, all those kinds of funding things, right? Every fire department knows to go to Firehouse Stubbs, right? All the, you know, they know the traditional, but it really does take some innovation and figuring out where should I be looking, grants.gov or whatever you subscribe to. Maybe you pay for that small subscription and have somebody, you know, once every 2 weeks go through the list and say, does this fit us? Now, I would caution you when it comes to grants or anything else, it's not a good idea to create the project. You should probably already have one in mind to enhance what you already do. So from a funding perspective, if you're thinking about diversification, what does that look like? So if you're based on property taxes, is it that you start promoting more home building, right? For that bedroom community or that rural community? Or do you need property taxes from bigger businesses? And what does that look like? So I think it's a strategy, right, about how you look at funding, where you find funding, and then what fits. And so there's no silver bullet, right? We're never going to get all the money that we wish we had, ever. Like ever. Doesn't matter if the faucet was flowing, it's not enough. Never. So how do you strategically look at what you get now and how do you use those funds strategically? And then what else do you need to enhance it? But then somebody's going to have to pay attention to it and look at it constantly. You should develop state partners. I mean, there's a lot of natural, like health departments, and each department, there's some natural funding that you can identify, but somebody has to pay attention to it. And if you're at capacity, that's hard to make time for. But if it's a priority to diversify your funding, those are the steps. Heavy lifting, yeah.
Also looking at those assets, you know, what the county has, what we can do
Yeah.
with that, what we can consolidate.
Yeah.
I mean, I rent the building that I'm in. The county spends a lot of money that we don't get back and we can't put back into the community. Granted, my landlord.
Yeah, when I worked for the county, I managed $2.5 million worth of leases for our services.
Okay.
In addition to what we already own. Yeah, it's, okay. I mean, so what to consolidate, rent versus own, what else?
Just there's a lot of funding that can be found.
Oh, yeah, efficiencies. Okay.
That same token,
Yes.
the health department is also in that same boat.
Yeah, the rent versus own efficiencies and what to prioritize, right, from a service perspective, that will address some funding things. Anything else related to funding? We need more. I know. So, we got some rocks up here, right? We got planning and funding and administrator and Eco-Devo. So, what's next? Okay, what's next? I think all of this takes at least time, at the bare minimum, and at least an assignment, right, to move forward. And so you have a lot of information, and when I leave here, right, you're going to get all this information, and I'll be back to narrow some stuff down. But what is it on the big picture that we have not captured yet? So if this is what we're boiling some things down to, each of these will have pretty specific, I think that's probably what we might work on next, is this pretty specific assignments, right? The real things. To get this done, what does it mean to, you know, think about who's gonna, for instance, understand what this new form of government could look like and how we could effectively get somebody hired and what that looks like to change our structure here if we want an administrator, right? So who's going to do that work? And that's the hard part, right? We all have great ideas, but what can we get done and what can we accomplish in whatever the time frame is that needs to be identified? I wanted to spend just a little bit of time. We might actually get done early. How about that? Do I get brownie points for that? Sure. Oh, okay, good. I want to look at the survey just a little bit. As I asked 3 questions about what's happening. And I don't know if you've had an opportunity to kind of breeze through this just a little bit. We talked about what's going well, right? And I want you to think about as we start taking some other steps and as we start thinking in general, there might be some things in here that we didn't talk about out loud but had gotten put into the survey responses. And so there's some things in here that might support what you already know, that you're doing well, right? That you have some good communication, that you're working together, you have, you have county services are being well ran, you're hoping that the county might be able to develop cooperation between hospitals, between businesses, between everything that's here, and that the channels of dialogue are open to create success, right? So people are recognizing that this is an okay place, right? We're here. There's a reason why everybody's here, right? Remember what that is, or try to tap into what that is and what's going well. You all struggled a little bit to tell me what was going well. Because I think, like you said about citizens, it's easier to pay attention to the negative and the challenges than it is to really be where you're successful. So no matter what, focus on those things that are going really well, because there's stuff happening here, and there's stuff going really well, and you have, I don't know, are you at full staff right now, Tina? No. I mean, you're missing how many, out of a total staff, what's the total staff?
Like 115 full-time.
115 full-time, and you're at what?
I don't know at the moment. Like, we're missing staff in the appraiser's office and road and bridge.
But it's not 50%, 40%, 30%, okay. So you're doing pretty good, right? You're doing pretty good.
The appraiser over there is saying, I don't know.
Boy, you're very, very positive there.
Yeah, do you need to fill 15, 20 spots? Yeah, okay. And that's, that's not where you want to be, of course. But I think that the fact that there's 100 people here might be a good positive side of this. We talked about challenges, and we boiled them down. Obviously, they're across the room. And I don't think that there's anything in here that was responded to that we didn't capture in this room, which is good. And then your perception of the county organization. So here's a little philosophy. If you're not providing good internal services, then it's really, really hard to provide good external services. That's the truth. And so spending a little time on your organization, I think, is good, right? How do we build good leadership? How do we focus what the organization needs to do moving forward, not where it necessarily has been. How do we create the teamwork? How do we create open communication? How do we increase our conversations and our outward-facing messaging to our citizens so they feel better about county government? And make sure that we are moving in a positive forward manner, because like you said, we can get really caught up and we can spend a whole lot of time about what happened 20 years ago, what didn't happen 20 years ago, right? We can spend a lot of time. There's a lot of urban legends out in every community, and they remember forever, right? I remember 20 years ago, that election, that elected body, gosh, they didn't want, yeah, my daughter would say, I wasn't even alive then, so let's move forward, right? So how you increase whatever you can do and build this team, because then you're gonna have to outwardly face and do some things, and you guys are trying to deliver those services, so hopefully that'll continue to grow. You talked about successes. I think that that's good, because whatever you were successful at doing serves as a model to make other things successful. Okay? Those are models that you can take forward and apply to other areas. The challenges, and there's lots of challenges, a lot of which we talked about. And I want to encourage you to continue to think about, even in county government as a whole, but individual departments, think about the trends. Think about how others are doing things and what makes sense to bring to Marion County. And you all belong to professional associations, I'm sure, and you talk to other people. And if it means going and talking to another county commissioner someplace else that has the dynamics that are existing, Marion County is not unique. There's other Marion counties out there, right? Because we have a lot of those kinds of counties in Kansas, at least, and other states. But in Wichita, our chamber, they do what they call a city-to-city tour. And they take people, leadership from one community and take them to another community just to brainstorm and think about it. So there might be another county in the state that reacts and looks a little similar. Doesn't hurt to talk to them. I'm sure you belong to the Sheriff's Association, right? You get to talk to a lot of sheriffs. And everybody has ideas. So I would encourage you to develop those partnerships and think about what those future trends are, which is where we started our day today. And then what it's going to come down to in all this planning is you're going to have to ask yourself some really hard questions. And that is, what are the critical services that the county has to provide moving forward, and at what level? And at what level? That's going to be critical. Because if you don't know that, then it's hard to know where to direct funds, and it's hard to know where to apply for funds around, right? So that's going to be the hardest part, is understanding what's mission critical and at what level, and then how much you want to fund it. Not easy stuff. And then I asked you where you wanted to be 3 years from now. Some of it was internal organizational structure and support, and some of it was external. And some people had some marketing things in there, right? In 3 years, I want Marion County to be described as progressive, cooperative, and welcoming. There you go. There's your tagline, right? You're halfway there. And then I also asked, what's important to you, right? What's your professional role? I think that with any organization, it's what we call a stay interview, right? Why are you here, and what is it going to take for you to stay? And people are going to be able to share, right? Well, I grew up here, right? I really want to help the people that are my neighbors. It's important to me. I don't want to leave Marion County to drive to Hutchinson or wherever to work. I want to support what we have here. If you can tap into why they're here, and tap into why they're working here, because there's 1,000 jobs out there, you guys. Anybody can move. My daughters couldn't wait to get out of Wichita. They live in Dallas-Fort Worth, right? Both of them. Both married, right? One set of kids. And so they will never come back to Kansas. Ever, ever, ever. I grew up in Southern California. It's taken me a long time to figure out why I'm in Kansas, right? Because I like the weather in Southern California. But my husband lived here his whole life. Family was here, right? We put down roots, went to school. Next thing you know, we're working, and next thing you know, we have a network and friends. But if you can understand why people are here, that can tap into where you probably need to spend your energies, not only internally as an organization, but as a community. And the last thing we talked about, and you shared in this survey, is what are those transformative issues? What is gonna happen, right? Work from home has taught us a lot about our services and how we can deliver them. You know, and I never thought I'd see the day when the city hall would close. Sedgwick County City Hall closed. And I remember listening to the county manager, who we had for like 28 years, say, we can never do that, we have to be here. We figured out, no, we don't. And last year, we pivoted services, right? Some of that's good, some of it's not so good, right? And some of it is a result of what we've trained the citizens to expect. Somebody said that to me. If we don't expect them to do anything remotely, and if we don't expect them to do anything via technology, then they won't. And they won't know, they won't learn to do that, right? Now, we have a better opportunity because lots of younger people, they will do anything they can to avoid City Hall, right? If it's not online, or if you don't have a website where they can figure out information, peace out, right? So you have to think about where your population is and what we're training them to expect. Because expectations, we can change expectations, right? So those are some transformative things. I think we've learned a lot over the last year. So I would encourage you to spend a little time on looking through some of these responses. There's some validity in there. It might change how we approach some of these areas. And because we know that there's things that are going to stand in our way to get things done. Could be citizens, the lack of that. It could be the lack of buy-in by staff. It could be funding. It could be a whole lot of things. So if we're going to get some stuff done, we got to figure out what's standing in our way and how do we manage that, right? How do we have conversations? How do we build partnerships? How do we co-op employees? How do we put MOUs in place? What do we need to do to meet our goals, and what does that look like? And then I just said in the survey, and I'm going to ask you right now, what have we not talked about? What have I not asked you? What have we not shared with each other that we might want to capture in the parking lot, so to speak? What have we not captured or considered moving forward? What would you like to be considered?
We've talked about the young people and their young families, and what about the older people?
Okay.
The retirees? That's a huge population that has some wealth. And we have a lot of those people who choose to retire in Marion County, who never lived here before, and they retire in Marion County for a number of reasons.
Yeah, that's a great point. Right? It's not just about attracting the young, but you do have a population, and how can you serve them better? Or, which is why Arizona is so prosperous, and Florida, right?
Yeah.
It's a retiree destination.
Yeah.
I was in St. John, Kansas, you know where that is? And I happened to be there when Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani were there hunting. Right? Well, who would have thunk that somebody like that would have known about St. John, Kansas hunting? But they marketed their hunting to the magazines and all that kind of stuff, and all of a sudden now, because Blake Shelton was there hunting, what else place to go, right? Like, the deer are better there, and so are the ducks. We're going, even though we have the same. But it was just a perception, it was a marketing, and it was creativity to bring in, and they didn't have to build nothing. They just opened the field and said, here you go, right? And they didn't have to hardly do anything. So I think you're right. I think, how do we attract based on the assets that we have, and where are we attracting from?
Well, don't go spreading that rumor about the Bucks and everything being better over there.
Oh, no, no.
They're definitely better here.
Of course they are, right?
And
Of course
they're
they are.
bigger, we
And
feed
they're
them
bigger,
well.
and you're well fed, right? That's right. Yeah, that's a
We
great
got
point.
2 legs. We
Got
plenty
2
of-
legs, we keep
Plenty
up.
of ducks and geese.
That's
We're
right.
better here.
And you know, 20 or 30 years ago, when outdoorsmen could gain access to property to hunt, Marion County benefited greatly.
Oh, sure.
Revenue that was brought, our revenue from hunting alone, I would say in the last 40 years is 10 or 15% of what it was when I was growing up. Because when hunting season started in Marion County, it was covered up with people. Every community had a community feed, celebration, whatever, that day. Now there is none. And you know, you could see it coming over the years because of private landowner issues, liability,
much larger landowners. But, you know, if we could ever tap any of the outdoor resources we had, it could be one of the biggest things this county could do.
Well, you're gonna build some cabins at the lake, so
Yeah, but
they'll have some place to
very
stay,
lim-
right?
Very limited.
Put some electricity in and
Some off-road
water.
trails.
Yeah, we'll have trails.
Off-road trails.
Here we go, the lake's, we're glowing as we know it.
Bryce is like, no more
It's
roads.
like, what?
No more roads.
Trails, yeah.
Trails, natural trails.
Well,
Anything else?
trails, you call them roads.
Hey.
Our county lake was even the primary hunting spot at one time. I
Yep.
mean, before they built the houses, then the houses come, run the hunting off, they don't want no hunting out there, they don't want no ducks
Yeah.
and geese.
We gave
The
them
ducks and
opportunity,
geese
they
are
didn't
still
like
out
the fun.
Yeah,
Nobody hunts
geese don't leave, they just hang around a little bit more.
I had a question, in your experiences or travels that you've talked to, what are some ways that as a county we can educate our constituents in some of this stuff?
Boy, I'm telling you, there are a lot of creative ways. I mean, I don't know how strong, do you have social media presence? Does somebody pay attention to Facebook and Twitter?
Usually not good.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have some that's put out, but we're not really monitoring
Okay, yeah.
other sites.
Yeah, so there,
Yeah.
it's a dual side, right? Not only what are you putting out to educate, but what are you monitoring so you understand and can get ahead of. You can almost predict that if there's an issue on your commission agenda, that's gonna fire some people up, right? So we definitely should be educating before it gets them fired up, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing is it's consistency. I mean, that's all it is. And so if you're trying to counter stories or whatever it is on one side, what are you doing to offset that on the other side? So you didn't go into detail, thank you very much, because I want to be able to plead the fifth when I leave here, but what are they saying that is really just not right? Okay, and then what are you doing to educate related to those hot topics, right? So that's a lot of what they do. We have a lot of people who write blogs, we write articles ourselves, right, in the local papers. A lot of managers or senior department heads. When I was a department head, I contributed to things like that. Because the more they read, the more they know. And then how do you invite people in? That's the other side of that. They're figuring out ways not only just to communicate out, but invite them in. Because they don't know what they don't know. And as much as we can educate them, the better off we are. Now some of that is a little bit heavier lifting, and some of it's like, I don't know who has their own stuff, but I'm on Twitter. I love Twitter, because it's short. I have an attention span like of a 2-year-old, perfect, I worked for a manager who would tell me everything you know in 30 seconds and 5 bullet points, and so I got used to thinking like that. But for me, Twitter is like, I can send something out, like, hey, I just drove by such and such road. This is a great job. Posting a picture, right? Showing progress. Because they don't know what you all are doing. That's the truth. Until you don't do something and then they see it.
Yeah.
Or they assume you're not doing something, right? So the more you can share what you do, visually, the younger crowd and even the older crowd likes the visual representations. It's not sometimes good enough to just say, oh, we built this road. Well, big deal. But our public works director in Sedgwick County, he used to do what we called the road show. And at the end of every year, he'd go out and take pictures of the before and after. And people got the impression like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that's what you were doing, right? I had no idea. So those are really easy ways because you're doing them anyways. You're out there anyways, right? And you should be touting your own horn. We do not talk about our successes in public service nearly enough. And we just assume they know, and they do not know.
Well,
So as much as you can advertise the good that's happening and or pay attention to the really, really uncomfortable conversations that might be happening, and even things, we used to reach out when the paper had a story. Now they spelled my name wrong several times, and that's okay, but I at least was able to comment. I was at least able to go to them and say, you know what, I'm hearing this stuff in town. I'd like to talk to you about it. Like, I'd like to write something. I'd like to put something in the opinion line or the editorial line, whatever it is. But you have to be willing to do that.
Yeah. Well, see, because what we face is with our communications per se is we've got the paper, which we just have the one paid subscription. Well, it's actually three pages or 3 papers, but it's all published by the same one, is
Yeah.
that kind of media there tends to go with the older generations that have had that for years and years.
Of course.
But we've got the younger people. For instance, if we put ads in the paper for whatever, we hardly ever hear anything. But that's what's required, basically like statutes or whatever else that we do
For
that.
advertising, yeah.
But it really does us no good, but we've also gone to Facebook and stuff to that effect. So we face those problems back and forth, and I mean, I totally understand. We actually have our, we actually started on Facebook with Road and Bridge, and we put a lot of stuff on, and we've got a lot of likes. So there's people out there. Yeah, I probably would admit too that we don't do as much good stuff on there as we should.
Yeah, and there's this, and this is the great thing about it too. So we use what we call, it's a little software trick, it's called Hootsuite, I don't know if y'all use that, but we can schedule them to go out. So I can write a bunch of Twitter posts and a bunch of Facebook posts and a bunch of this, and then we just schedule it, 2 weeks ahead of time, whatever it looks like, and it just goes out for us. And that saves a lot of time, because if I have to agonize, I do a Talent Thursday, right, on my Twitter, and if I have to think about it, it's like, oh man, it's 4 o'clock on Thursday, oh gosh, I forgot my, but I can do it in advance and schedule that. When you have projects coming up, when you have health initiatives, you can spread the word all kinds of ways. So those are some really easy, low-tech kind of ways to that, but how do you balance the communication and how do you invite people in? Yeah, that's what a lot of communities spend a lot of time on. Yeah. Because we don't even have a newspaper in Wichita. It's all online now.
Sure.
So you're saying we should hire a young geek to teach us how to use the computer?
Yeah, first we gotta know how to use the technology.
Well, that's our problem. I mean, how many people's on Twitter here?
We could get our kids and grandkids to do it.
Yeah,
for
just
us.
invite your nearest 5-year-old around.
Yes.
That's kind of what your suggestion, we should.
He just said, are there tips in which we can communicate better? That is a tip, yes.
We don't know how to communicate.
Oh, yeah. I can tell you, if you go to the high school, somebody's sitting in a computer class or somebody's sitting in some kind of class, and they would definitely do Twitter 101 for you. Facebook 101, right? And not everybody needs to do it, but I'm just saying, if you're a department head or you've got people on there, they've got people that, I'm guessing that you've got some younger people that are working there, and you've got some older people. Older generations tend to like Facebook because it's personal. Twitter is a little bit more of a shorter attention span. Some people just post pictures of what's going on, right? It could be, I don't know if you guys have like a fall festival or events in your town. That's a great way to get people engaged. All that kind of stuff. So yeah, but it takes consistency, because I can tell you with communication, once you start it, you gotta keep doing it. And that's the hard part. It really is. Nothing's easy. Nothing is easy.
Now, one of the things that I did is when I first got here, we actually had the county fair. A lot to introduce myself, as this position, but we also had the floods and stuff going on, as I had a booth at the county fair. And everybody kind of looked at it and was like, wow, but I had all the pictures of the flood damage. And it was amazing how many people stopped. It's like, wow. When the reservoir out here was getting all the water and they were releasing so much water, it was flooding county roads. But I told people, I had a visual thing here. This is how much water, this is 1 cubic foot of water that they're releasing 14,000 of these per second compared to what they're bringing in. And it's people like, wow. So, that was something similar. It was a lot of extra time on my part to sit out there, but I felt that was my way to try to help that out and educate the people. But
between that and food trucks, you're set.
Food trucks.
Sit next to the food truck. That's where you get the most business. If you want people engaged, we do when we do strategic planning and we do community engagement, that's where we go, is whatever the fair or the fall festival is, and I'm where the food trucks are, because that's where the most people are, literally. All right, anything else for the greater good that we want to capture before I leave? Any questions, concerns?
Are you going to recap all this and send it back?
Yes,
Okay.
you guys will get a report on all of this information, and then we'll figure out what the next steps are. Good stuff? All right, thank you all.
No, thank you very much for the morning, and I'm quite sure everybody's picked something up. What it is.
Yeah.
So, but we are scheduled for another time here after.
March 23rd in the afternoon in the commission room. So it'll be another Tuesday, but it'll be from 12:30 to 4:30 And, we're just doing it in commission room because that'll be more focused on commissions.
Okay.
And department heads can come in or be online or however they want to do it. It'll be.
Assuming the audio's working.
I just want to thank all the department heads and elected for coming in. Your input is heard, you are appreciated, and I think the comments are gonna go a long way. So thank you.
Thanks for taking your morning.
Because we're not doing anything else, right?
Well,
Should we stop
you
this,
gotta
Tina?
get this line, I gotta get the
Just
call
close.
out.
Oh, well.
Yeah.